analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Very good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Wednesday, January the 19th. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and me, Isabel.
You're very welcome. We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your telly, we're on your radio, and wherever you're watching, let us know where you're watching. Get in touch with us at GB News. You could be in Derry, you could be in Totnes, you could be in Wakefield, where I was yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
Shocking thing happened to me, Isabel. Shocking.
What
thing.
happened to you?
Well, I was like, these three ladies approached me and they were out on a walk, and they were quite thrilled to meet me.
Of course they were.
And I was we had a nice laugh and nice time. They had no idea about GB News. Never heard of it.
Right, well, we've put what they call billboards everywhere and they still don't know.
Well, they don't have them in Wakefield.
Right, well, they know now.
The thing is, yes, this is the thing. It is your duty to go out and spread the word and tell them that the breakfast hierarchy is breaking down, that we are the new kids on the block, and that they should be watching on so many channels, so many ways, YouView, Freeview, apps, Sky,
YouTube.
515, on the radio.
Yes.
Of course, they were amazed to hear that we're on the radio as well. So all of that.
Spread the word.
And coming up this morning, Red Wall MPs have been hatching the so-called pork pie plot to oust Boris Johnson. It follows a car crash interview in which the Prime Minister said he was never warned the Bring Your Own Booze party was against his own rules. Our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, will be here to explain all.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is expected to announce an easing of Plan B coronavirus restrictions in England. So is it time to finally put the pandemic behind us?
Plus, a GB News exclusive. The first woman in the UK jailed for joining ISIS breaks her silence. Hear why Tarina Shackle says she made the biggest mistake of her life when she joined the terrorist group. You can join in that discussion or any other discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet. Send pictures, send videos. Tell us what you think. Your news, your views on it at GB News.
So our top story this morning, Boris Johnson's bracing himself for another tough day in Westminster. Not only will he come face-to-face with Sir Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's questions, but he's facing down a rebellion of Red Wall MPs in his own party in the so-called pork pie plot.
Well, last night, Conservative backbench MP Andrew Bridgen told GB News that he knew of at least 20 MPs who will submit letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister.
Telegraph is also reporting this morning of an additional number of MPs who are ready to submit letters of no confidence. 54 is the number needed in total by the end of Prime Minister's questions. Well, earlier Boris Johnson denied he was warned that a drinks garden party at Downing Street risked breaking lockdown rules. Oh, I thought we were going to play a clip then.
So did I.
Sounded like a little tease there.
You had me built up 2-0 and this is what he said.
Yeah,
but no.
It was a bit of a car crash interview, that's for sure.
What we are going to hear, who said what, our political editor. And listen, Darren, lovely to have you here, right? So, do you know what this reminds me of? The time Margaret Thatcher called in the MPs and said, you know, what do you think? Have I your support or don't they? And she didn't like what she heard.
No, indeed. And we're in a very, very frenzy, excitable atmosphere at Westminster at the moment where things are moving pretty fast. On terms of the letters going in, and they need 54 of you guys have remarked in order to spark this leadership election that could force the Prime Minister out. It's really difficult to tell. Frankly, no one knows. But at the moment, the numbers seem to be going up, particularly these MPs that were elected back in 2019. Many who would say might owe their seat to Boris Johnson in the so-called Red Wall in the Midlands and in the north of England. But many of them will be meeting yesterday and the day before, essentially questioning Boris Johnson's leadership. Some have publicly now come out and said they are going to submit letters. And I think in part that is because they've just not been very impressed by the Prime Minister's explanations over the last week or so.
But Darren, there's something about this, isn't there? They get one go at this because if they get this wrong and they don't topple him, they can't do it again
for another year.
Yeah.
So what happens is they submit these letters. If it gets to 54, there'll be a vote of which there needs to be a majority. So you're talking about upwards of 180 MPs. But you're right, if they then back him, a bit like happened with Theresa May, do you remember when that happened? She was then safe for another year. And that is why, even though there are some MPs who want to get rid of him, some others are saying, well, hold on a second, I don't like this, but we should still wait for that investigation from Sue Gray, the senior civil servant who's looking into all of this, all the different parties that have taken place. Now, that is due to report potentially the end of this week. I suggest more likely the start of next week. She's about to interview Dominic Cummings, of course, who's been making lots of allegations about this. But in the end, the reason there's this discontentment, the reason things seem to be moving very, very quickly is because they weren't very impressed with Prime Minister's question time last week. They weren't very impressed during that interview yesterday, in which he seemed to suggest that he wasn't quite sure what the rules were or that no one told him.
Blooming wrote them.
And we've got then this key moment, and that's why Prime Minister's question time will be again fascinating today. But believe me, the Prime Minister is fighting for his political life.
Yeah, and you could see it, couldn't you, in that interview yesterday that was pulled for all the broadcasters. Some of the papers described him as tearful. I don't think he was, but he certainly looked very red-eyed. Just to explain to our listeners and our viewers about why it's been called the pork pie plot as well, first of all. And also just explain, because, of course, they are very different from those who are the payroll members of his team, those in the Cabinet and their meeting this morning. Just give us a little sense of who's behind him and who's not.
Yeah, indeed. So it's called the pork pie plot because one of the MPs involved in this represents Melton Mowbray, which of course is famous for its pork pies. Many, though, feel that's a slightly derogatory term that's been imposed from some of the old guard MPs, and there has been this kind of tension, let's put it polite, between those MPs who've been in the Conservative Party for a long period of time, who may have safe seats in Southern England, versus the Northern MPs who were elected or Midlands MPs at the last election. And in part, even though they may well feel they owe their victory in those seats to Boris Johnson, actually, lots of them got wafer-thin majorities. And they fear that if lots of the public have turned against Boris Johnson, and the polls seem to suggest they have, that those seats could be in danger at the next election. And that is why I think there's an increased concern amongst that intake of MPs that something needs to be done, that the public mood has changed on this, that the public, frankly, are not buying the Prime Minister's excuses about what went on in Downing Street in the space of 2020, in which there seem now to be upwards of 17 parties across government, or allegations of 17 parties, some of which involve the Prime Minister himself.
But the Cabinet meeting that's happening this morning, he'll be talking about easing the lockdown restrictions, and that will appease many people who are worried about his tenure going forward, presumably.
Yeah, it's a big moment for the country. Aside from all the politics of Westminster, there was real concern, wasn't there, before Christmas about the impact this new variant might have. We saw restrictions introduced in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland but not in England. It looks like today, or certainly ahead of Christmas, obviously Plan B was introduced. It looks like largely that's going to be rolled back probably as early as next week in England. We saw changes, of course, in Scotland yesterday. And that means that the work from home guidance will almost certainly go. It means that the guidance around face masks might well change. That possibly might stay in place, but also that COVID passports, which was pretty controversial. If you go to a large-scale event, you need to prove you've been vaccinated or had a negative test, that will go as well. So another step back towards some semblance of normality.
Yeah, it is fascinating, Darren, as to what keeps people in power. So we've got get this whole situation and criticisms of Boris Johnson. And I found myself in a conversation with a lady in Yorkshire yesterday, and she was in the hospitality business, and she had lots of reasons, obviously, not to support him with the way it was start-stop in hospitality. They can't plan for anything, whatever. And I said, so she was quite critical of him. And I said, so do you think he should go? Oh, no, I love him. No, I love him. And there was this thing, so no matter what the practical downside was of all of this, there definitely seems to be, some people see him as a buffoon, other people see him as like a rock star in terms of politics.
No, definitely. And you know, he's someone who's defied political gravity for a long period of time. He's clearly still quite popular with a large section of the public. And I think in the end, the reason some people are concerned about, or are not concerned about all of this, A, because this is what they expect of Boris Johnson. They knew that when they were voting for him. But in addition, you know, the main point of where we're now at is that we've got this kind of battle, a battle royale, if you like, between Dominic Cummings, on the one hand, who's accusing the Prime Minister of lying about all of this, and Boris Johnson denying it. And many people turn around and say, well, sorry, this is the same Dominic Cummings who broke rules himself, and frankly, who large sections of the population do not trust either. And in the end, that's why lots of people are still backing Boris, because they think this is Dominic Cummings trying to serve out an awful lot of revenge.
We saw Rishi Sunak walking out of an interview yesterday because he said he doesn't like to speculate, but I'm going to make you speculate. Where do you see this going?
You know what? If you had asked me on Tuesday, I would have thought... This is so dependent on Sue Gray's report, by the way. I think we're still at that stage where that will be the crucial moment. I would have said on Tuesday, though, he's more likely than not at least to stay for the next couple of months. Yesterday seemed to turn the tables where things were moving so quickly that we really could see things change in the next week or so, and that's certainly what MPs are suggesting. I think the bigger question for Boris Johnson, whether he lasts a week, a month, maybe beyond the May elections, is that can he recover from this? He's clearly now deeply unpopular with a large section of the public. This does seem to have changed the mood. And even within his own party, a big section of MPs seems to turn against him. And so even if he holds on, can he recover? I think that's the bigger question. But you know what? As I said, I come back to this. He is fighting for his political life. And watching that interview yesterday, he knows it too. He knows it too.
He does.
OK, Darren McCaffrey is our political editor. Really appreciate that, Darren. Thank you.
He's going to be with us all morning as well, because this is such a fast-paced, moving story that will keep his ear to the ground for us and bring you all the very latest. OK, what is coming next in the programme? I'm not sure.
No, we're going to show a clip of last night. So the fact is that Andrew Bridgen, this MP, I think he spoke to Dan Wootton last night, which has created all these headlines today. And this is what he had to say.
Do you believe this report from Christopher Hope to be correct?
Yes, because I was with him when they told him.
Really? So it's happening? 20...
It's going to happen. I think that will push over the 54 required to trigger a confidence motion vote.
And you believe that there's already 34 letters submitted in that case?
I think it'd be very, very close to that number, yes.
OK, that's what started a lot of this, that interview with Dan Wootton with Andrew Bridgen last night. You're now seeing former Conservative Red Wall advisor and hearing Oscar Reddrop beside us now. Oscar, we heard Darren McCaffrey's view on all of this, our political editor. What are you thinking yourself?
We are seeing absolutely in real time how the phrase "a week can, a lifetime in politics." It's minutes now. I think it feels like things are changing. Those Red Wall MPs have gone back to their constituencies over the weekend, and I think they've been pretty shocked and
at how outraged people
and very concerned.
We're
at how
just
outraged they
analysing
feel.
this. You know, there's a lot of people who will be saying, "Oh, look at them Boris bashing," or whatever it is. It's fact. It's fact. It's
we
all,
could just
it's
ignore
around
all
us.
the papers if they'd like, and the democratic voice of people in constituencies. But
No, absolutely. I think the one thing that I would urge here, though, is it's a huge call. You know, Boris Johnson is, and it's such a tired old phrase, isn't it? But he is the reason why those guys have seats. But more importantly, Boris Johnson is the reason why those MPs' hometowns voted Conservative for the first time in generations. And turning round and rejecting that is a huge call.
I can feel this. It's like these folk in these red wall constituencies, they're saying, right, OK, this is a bit alien to me, but because of Boris, right, we're gonna place our trust in him.
Deal with the devil. That's what it was,
And they were a bit nervous about it. And now they're thinking, told you so, should never trust them, should never get into bed with them. Is that salvageable?
I think it is salvageable. Purely communications advice. I think there were mistakes made last week where before they'd gone home to their constituencies for the weekend, Boris Johnson could have got ahead of this. He could have controlled the message and come out with an apology himself. I think, you know, you take the tie off, you sit on a sofa, you look down the camera and you speak from the heart. You don't, as we saw in that interview, you know, you're first speaking to the people once more after the week he's had, the month he's had, you know, behind a mask, almost doorstepped in a hospital corridor for 13 minutes. It was painful viewing. That was not the way that should have been handled at all. However, I think again these Red Wall MPs they really need to ask themselves, if we topple Boris, is Jeremy Hunt? How's that going to work in Hartlepool? How's that actually going to play? And it's a huge call. And I still think today at PMQs we will see. When we spoke last week, PMQs was a very kind of sombre mood. I think it will be different this week. I think there'll be Red Wall MPs sat there really...
You see, Jeremy Hunt, what are you saying, really, that he lacks the showbiz? I mean, a very competent minister, a very dedicated man, whether you agreed with the way he ran the health service or not. But what you're saying is basically he's too boring.
Well, no, I mean, he doesn't have that cut through. Boris Johnson reaches parts of the country for the Conservatives that have never been reached before. Jeremy Hunt was quite literally in government when these Red Wall constituencies rejected the Tories for election upon election. It's such a huge call. And finally, you know, in terms of letters and where we're actually at with this, the gold medal Boris wearing haters, if you like, they will be cooking this up as much as possible. I still don't think they will quite have the gumption to take it over the line. I really don't. I think Boris.
If the papers are to be believed, they're very close to the threshold, if not almost, reaching 54. But who knows? I mean, only Graham Brady knows. And a lot of this, as you say, is being whipped up by, I think, Deanna Davidson, who's a presenter here at GBNews, is being named as one of the Red Wall kind of ringleaders in all of this, but also being accused, as you described, by the sort of traditional party grandees of being sort of, who are you coming in and stirring up trouble?
And again, today, strategically, don't empower Labour like that. That's the thing I would be, if I was a whip, a government whip right now, I'd be saying to those Tory MPs, do not empower Labour right now, because what we'll see in PMQs today is they'll obviously pile into Boris in terms of his interview yesterday, but they'll pile onto the backbench MPs, and Keir Starmer will be saying, guys, get rid of this guy, do what's right for the country, and it'll be quite tempting for them in a way. But don't be fooled. Labour will turn round, if they replace Boris, Labour will turn round and say, well, you guys all defended him. Do not strategically empower Labour like that. That's what I would be urging.
Interesting. Oscar, fascinating to hear your thoughts on that and explaining the situation as you see it out there, the story behind the story. Thank you very much indeed, Oscar Redrop. Former Conservative Red Wall advisor. If you're in a Red Wall constituency, if you were a Red Wall voter, we'd love to hear from you today. I mean, maybe even send us a bit of a video on your tweet at GBNews. And we'll try and play those out today.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? Even some of his harshest critics, just on a human level, beginning to feel sorry for Boris. Even I felt sorry for him looking at him yesterday. I'm supposed to be impartial, but as a human, I saw a very beaten man. And, you know, maybe people at home feeling the same. Let us know your thoughts this morning.
Headlines are these. Let's have a look. MPs have criticised plans for the armed forces to take over English Channel operations to limit migrant crossings. They warned using the Navy as a taxi service would be an embarrassment.
The Defence Minister James Heappey confirmed the Royal Navy will not be intercepting small boats or using sonic weapons.
He's going to be on our show later today. The American Secretary of State Anthony Blinken will meet the Russian Foreign Minister as tensions between Washington and Moscow continue to rise over Ukraine. The trip is set to show US support of Ukraine and emphasise to Russia the need for de-escalation. They'll meet in Geneva on Friday.
2 teenagers arrested in Manchester in connection with the hostage-taking at a Texas synagogue on Saturday have been released without charge. Blackburn-born Malik Faisal Akram was shot dead by the FBI after holding people hostage in a 10-hour standoff.
The committee investigating the US Capitol riots have issued subpoenas to some of Donald Trump's closest advisors, including his former personal lawyer and former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. The committee is demanding information and testimony from Mr. Giuliani, who defended the president and the voter fraud claims in the months after the 2020 election.
The pandemic is nowhere near over, according to the World Health Organization. The head of WHO gives his COVID update, saying now is not the time to give up on the strategy. He adds Omicron continues to spread at a rapid rate around the world, and if people think it might all be over after this latest variant, that is simply not the case. Well, up next, we have the latest from Tonga. The government there have been releasing its first official update since that tsunami. They say it's devastated the country. But first of all, we're going to bring you your Wednesday forecast.
Good morning. There's a bit of rain around this morning, but it is all moving away to the south and sunny spells will follow for most of us. But you'll notice a colder feel, I suspect, with the breeze from this afternoon. High pressure has been dominating, but one is shrinking away. Another one is moving in, but for the time being, we've got a couple of weather fronts just drifting south in between, and they're providing the cloud and the rain. A damp start over parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, some heavy bursts of rain for a time across the southwest. The southeast and East Anglia, some places still misty and murky here, but we'll start to see the cloud increasing through the day and then some patchy rain here during this afternoon. Some showers will linger across northern Scotland, turning a little wintry, but for most places it'll brighten up quite nicely today with some good spells of sunshine and temperatures getting up to 8-9 degrees. For a time, double digits across the southwest, but it will feel colder, especially as the strong wind brings a real chill across the northeast and some snow showers to Shetland. Even over the mainland of Scotland, could be some sleet and snow showers this evening. Might make things a bit icy. And then down the eastern side of England tonight, there could also be some showers here. And again, some of them could be wintry. And again, it could turn icy as temperatures fall lower than the night just gone. More widely, we'll see temperatures down to freezing. So a frosty start to tomorrow. Still a few of these wintry showers, just clipping parts of Lincolnshire into Norfolk. Mostly rain, but some snow is possible. The odd rain shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall as well, but for the vast majority, tomorrow is a beautiful, crisp winter's day. Yes, it'll be frosty to start with, and temperatures will only reach 4 or 5 degrees for most, but the winds will be easing off, and there will, as I say, be quite a bit of sunshine around, all thanks to high pressure. This one's moving back in, keeping the weather fronts at bay. There will be at times some cloud and breeze across the northern half of the UK, but for many, the outlook, even into the weekend, is to stay dry with more fog and frost, especially in the south.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Just getting news out of Tonga and the underground volcano eruption. Tonga says it has been hit by an unprecedented disaster. This is the government's first update since the explosion that triggered a tsunami.
Yeah, the UN has confirmed 4 deaths, 3 nationals and, of course, a British woman. We spoke to the brother of Angela Glover yesterday on the programme.
Siana Roccavocano is head of programmes at the Red Cross, so we're going to get an update from him as to what is going on. Sorry, I can't see the picture. So you're a lady. Forgive me, Siana. We just want to know, this could have been a lot worse. I mean, it really could have been. Siana, can you hear us?
I can hear you now, but I didn't hear you before that.
Yes, welcome to the programme. We're just trying to say that in terms of, information's very sparse coming from the island, but is the feeling that this could have been a lot worse than it seems to be?
When it did start on Saturday, we were a bit worried because the last communication that we got from our counterparts was around 6 p.m. our evening, where they had informed us that they were assisting the communities from the coast to higher grounds. So we've been anticipating, trying to, communicate with our counterparts on the island from Saturday. And finally, we got an update today in the morning. So the Secretary General of the Tonga Red Cross Society, Sione, contacted us to say that they're well, they're fit, and they're all responding. They're part of a government team that's responding to the disaster, to the operations. We're anticipating assisting 1,200 households in our planning, and we're awaiting confirmation from the island so that we could progress. And we were also, we were content knowing that we had stocks for 1,200 households. And that included household kits of tarpaulins, of blankets, a bucket, of cleaning items, shelter kits, which had which had tools for cleaning up and also for repairing their homes. All that were on the island. Our counterparts, we have 10 staff. We have 70 volunteers who have been part of the operation, and they have been assisting them. And today we did get the update that a few of our staff have accompanied the team that's gone to the island that was completely destroyed, delivering fresh water and relief items.
OK, so in the immediate future then, it looks as though relief is getting through and support is being provided and, as you say, flights getting in and ships from New Zealand and Australia as well. What about the longer-term prospects then? How significant has the damage been? Because obviously we know Tonga is incredibly flat, so when the waves came through over the weekend, they did do a huge amount of damage. You know, how long will it take Tonga to recover from this?
We're planning our operations for about for 2 months. You know, they because their fresh water has been has been impacted by the volcanic ashfall. The tsunami did bring in seawater into their water source, so we're seeing water as a priority. We've worked with the Australian Red Cross to deliver water containers that we can then that our counterparts can distribute to the communities to pack to store fresh water. And we're also seeing that they will also need to repair their homes and build back better shelter.
Okay, Sanyana.
So the main priorities, shelter and water.
Sanyana Rokovokago from the Red Cross, we really appreciate you talking to us this morning and we wish you the very best of luck with your relief efforts. Thank you.
With that, we'll take a break and we'll be looking at the newspapers today. Kate Hoey, John Gaunt, their views after this.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Inflation's set to reach a 30-year high. Figures will be released on this later today.
Yeah, let us know what you think about this. Our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has been out and about in Mansfield to get some of your views.
I can't explain it. Not that clever.
Not really. I don't really follow any of it like that now. I don't take any notice of it. So, no, not really.
Not really, no. I feel like, because I work, so I get money, but I don't really know anything like to do with finance.
The higher the interest or inflation is, obviously the harder it is for people that, because sort of like, say, a 5% pay rise on very little doesn't mean anything, but 5% if you're on 60 grand a year means you get a hell of a lot better return.
All I know is that money goes up, it constantly goes up. No one wants it to go up, and I don't understand why it does, but I just know that it does, and at the end of the day, I've got no money. That's essentially it.
Can you just explain to me how inflation works?
Well, not really. Couldn't you?
No, I
not
don't
really.
know how it really works.
No, not really. It's just they keep putting it up, and that's about it. Being the older generation, we've always had to watch our money and budget, and we do try and take care of what we spend most of the time. You know.
Money doesn't go up. Money goes up a little bit, but nowhere near as much as the inflation.
Yeah, well, I had the misfortune of being in the 70s and saw rip-roaring inflation. It was great for people who had money because, you know, you could get 15% interest on your savings. You know, can you imagine that nowadays, getting that sort of return? And young people who'd taken out mortgages saw their mortgage rates double overnight, and it was crippling for them, and it set them back several years. One of the problems nowadays is I think young people and middle-aged people who've got mortgages have got used to very, very low interest rates, and we could be living in a fool's paradise when things start to turn and inflation roars again.
I do know how the money works, and I know how expensive it's got, and how it's going to inflate. It makes you wonder what's going to happen anyway, but at my age, why should we worry?
Isabel and I are just watching those people in Mansfield town centre there, and it is so impressive how much you guys know, how switched on you are, because I suppose it literally does affect your whole standard of living.
Yeah, I mean, much more people will be interested in this than, unfortunately, what we're all being forced to talk about, which is Boris Johnson. But this affects the pound in people's pocket. Let's bring in our On the Money presenter, Liam Halligan, obviously one of the presenters here on GB News. You're going to be bringing us the breaking line of the consumer price inflation figures for December in the next hour. But it's not going to be good news, is it?
No, I think inflation will be higher in December, Isabel, than it was in November. I'm looking at a number 5.2%, maybe a little bit more. What does that mean? It means that prices in December were 5.2% higher than they were in December 2020. And of course, unless your wages have gone up by 5%, it means you've lost out. This is what happens. Inflation basically means rising prices. Those rising prices erode living standards unless your wages are keeping up. And we learnt yesterday that the average wage rise at the back end of last year was about 3.5%. And of course, that's the average. A lot of us don't get wage rises at all. A lot of those wage rises are in the public sector, and most of us work in the private sector. So the number will be out at 7 o'clock, not long to wait now. And I'll be back on your show in a while telling viewers what that number actually is.
But actually, talking numbers there, giving people a 5% pay rise would be wonderful and lovely, and you think one wipes out the other. But it doesn't really, does it? I mean, if everybody was to get a 5% pay rise, what would that lead to, or where do things go after that?
What happens, Eamonn, if you get... When we were lads watching politics and economics in the 70s and 80s, what happened were called wage price spirals. So if you start to get 5% wage rises, then that pushes up firms' costs, then inflation goes up again, which means trade unions and others push for higher wages, and in the end, no one wins, but no one wants to invest because the value of money is changing all the time. It's very, very difficult to make a decision about the future. And this is the issue here. We've got inflation because during the pandemic, a lot of the economy stopped, a lot of production stopped, and it's the economy's spluttering to get back into gear, to get that production back up at a time when, coming out of lockdown across the world, and it is a global phenomenon, it must be said, the economy can't respond to higher demand. So the goods and services aren't there, so prices go up. Plus, of course, the really big issue in inflation, which many of our viewers will feel, we talk about it on The Money, 1 p.m, Monday to Friday, all the time, is the fuel price increases, which many people are now feeling. And we all know that in April, fuel prices are going to go up even more. The average household utility bill, Eamonn, the price cap that Ofgem, the regulator, brings in, reflecting very high wholesale gas prices, the average household utility bill is going to go up from £1,277 now, which itself is much, much higher than this time last year. It's going to go up, most people think, above £2,000. That's a huge percentage increase from £1,277 to £2,000.
And that is going to feed into inflation. And again, very few of us are likely to see wage rises which compensate for that. So our living standards will fall.
Does your Scrap the VAT campaign, can that help in a way that no one's thought about?
Well, you're right. We've been asking the government to scrap the VAT on fuel bills. VAT on fuel bills is only 5%, but it's a help. That's £100 a year on the average fuel bill. For a lot of hard-pressed families, that will be a great help. The only alternative to scrapping the VAT, or the only immediate alternative, I would say, is for the Prime Minister to cut those green levies that almost all of us pay now on our fuel bills, about 20-25% of our fuel bills. I can't see him doing that. I can't see him rolling back on the whole COP26 agenda anytime soon. So I think the best way to demonstrate, and he needs to demonstrate, that he gets this cost of living squeeze, which beyond the Partygate and Downing Street shenanigans, MPs know is absolutely a huge issue. The only way to really address that quickly, Eamonn, in my view, is to scrap VAT on fuel. That's something the government can do immediately, and crucially, it can do it now we're outside the European Union. So he could present it, if you like, as a kind of Brexit bonus. I'm not holding my breath, but On the Money, GBNews, across all our shows, we're pushing for that.
Of course.
Well, you're going to have those CPI figures for us in around 20 minutes' time, so we will be crossing back to you. Liam Halligan, thank you.
I'll grab a coffee and I'll be back.
Do. We've called this segment Home Economics because he's broadcasting to us from his kitchen. Love it. Enjoy your coffee. See you shortly. Now, a British woman convicted for travelling to Syria to join Islamic State says she's now ashamed of her actions. She was speaking exclusively to Dan Wootton on GB News last night. Tarina Shakil, the only Briton to be convicted for such a crime, explained why she joined ISIS in the first place.
Can you just confirm to me, can you look me in the eye and confirm to me that you were not responsible for any violence over there? Because there are some messages that you sent that have raised the question as to whether you were or not.
No, absolutely not.
So you were never involved in any murders of anyone, any killings of anyone? You were never involved in any violence personally?
No, absolutely not.
And so you're over there, you're in a house, you're at least witnessing terrible things going on around you, and you realise you've made the biggest mistake of your life.
Yeah.
So how does it feel in that moment?
Despair. You know, feeling that I will never be able to come back, and even if I did, you know, is there any point going back anyway? Because I'm in a lot of trouble when I go home. I'm going to go to prison, they're going to take my child off me. But it just came to the point where, you know, the need and the want to go home just became greater than thinking about what was going to happen to me upon return. So at that moment, you know, it was despair is probably the only word I can use.
Tarina, you're an intelligent human being. The time that you went over, ISIS were beheading Brits. Surely you knew what this organisation was about.
Yes, I had seen them things in the media. And, you know, the only thing I can say is that there's no justification for that. I can only offer an explanation, and I guess I just become so consumed in, you know, searching for this euphoric happiness as it had been sold to me, and, you know, making hijra, migrating for the purpose of living in a Muslim country. I guess I became fixated on that as opposed to what I should have.
But you had a normal upbringing. I mean, the rumours were you were a fan of The Only Way is Essex, which is why you're referred to as the Tawi jihadi. What was it that turned you against our culture?
I was never turned against the culture. If I had turned against the culture, I don't think 7 weeks would have been enough to bring me back to loving the culture. It wasn't about that.
No, but you would argue that ISIS was at war with us. I mean, look at the Manchester arena bombings, the killing of those very young Brits.
ISIS had, you know, is responsible for a lot of horrific things. Any attacks that happened on the West happened when I had already returned.
Okay.
So.
Tarina Shakil there, so that interview exclusively on Dan Wootton last night. Your views, keep them coming in. We'll be debating them. And we're going to debate the newspapers now. We're in the company of Baroness Kate Hoey, former Labour MP, now life peer in the House of Lords, and broadcaster John Gaunt. Do you know the one thing, we're talking about this cost of living index coming out at 7 o'clock this morning. We're going to be talking about this awful squeeze, which is going to affect everybody. And it doesn't look good. Inflation, maybe up to 5% or so. So, John, you have, now John's been doing what a lot of you are thinking about. He's been shopping around on his utility bills to see if he can save any money. And it was driving you insane, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it's incredible. Basically, I've got a deal. I won't name the company at this point, for my gas and my electricity. So I said to my wife, Lisa, I'll phone them and see if we're paying too much a month, because, you know, you can pay too much and then you're in credit.
Yes.
They only ever get in touch with you if you're in debit.
Yes.
If they want to up your thing. So I rang up, and every time you ring, it says, oh, we've got a 15-minute wait. And I think it's deliberate to put you off, to put the phone down. But I just sat there and waited. And then I eventually spoke to somebody.
That takes some patience, John.
It does, and for me, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you get put through to either the Philippines or India. I wasn't sure. And I'm not being rude, and I'm not being racist, but the lady at the other end was very good and very helpful, but she had a very strong accent. And as you know, I'm a little bit deaf. And I was thinking, well, if you're older, this will be really difficult. Anyway, we eventually found out my electricity, I don't have to pay again now for 2 months because they've got over 500 quid of my money already.
So you were well ahead.
Oh, well ahead.
Bills.
And then on my gas the same, but then they couldn't work out the gas. It took me all day.
Yes.
Right? And that's not even trying to
What
change.
do you think you saved, John?
I've saved.
It was your money in the first
place. A couple of hundred quid. No, going forward, I'm going to be paying a couple of hundred quid less. And I've saved money. But they don't give you it back. They just say, oh, don't pay for these months.
Yeah.
But my point and my objection about this, and where I think we need some regulation, is, you know, if you were older or frail or living on your own, you'd find this a really difficult thing to do. Now, as you know, I'm good at arguing and I'm good at being bolshy. Most people aren't. And I think this has got to change. There should be a trigger the moment they've got too much of your money, and they've had too much of my money for months and months, they should reduce it, shouldn't they? Yeah. Because they have a trigger the moment you've not given them enough. And I just think it's wrong. I think it's a rip-off. And I think all the utility most of the gas and electricity companies are doing the same thing. And government should intervene because this is wrong. And it's going to be vital. You know, it's the old cliche, isn't it? Meat or heat. And that's what's going to happen to a lot of our audience here. Sorry.
I mean, funny enough, I've got a very good friend who's exactly that, trying to get far too much money built up, trying to get it back. And she has spent literally hours, like you, trying to get them to pay back what's her money, but they won't do it. But, you know, I think that there's a worrying thing for me generally about older people, and probably because we're all getting older, but people who aren't literate in technology, and you know they can't do anything other than telephone, and the whole way that the telephones now, they're designed to get you to go online, and you know some people are just not able to do it.
Not only that, Kate, I tell you what they're also designed to do. The first thing they ask, whether it's an automatic voice, a bot, or the lady in India or wherever she is, can you give me a meter reading? That's what they want first, to see if they can screw even more money out of it.
Oh, well.
It's completely wrong. It's really difficult to find the phone number on the bills as well. This has all got to change. This has all got to change.
Oh, this is everything, whether you lose your bank card, whether you want to book an airline ticket, whatever it happens to be, we end up doing someone else's work. And the whole idea is, so you say, look, I know this going back and forward to Belfast, and you try and change, you think, oh, I'm not now going on Friday, I'll go on Saturday morning or whatever it is. And they make you go on phone lines that basically make it go up, give up the will to live. So basically you say, oh, let that 60 quid go, I'll let that, it's not worth the hassle. It's not worth your whole day.
It's not.
Can I give you a tip, though? You know when you go onto that thing that says press 1 for this, press 2 for that? A mate of mine managed call centres. He says you just scream down the phone, operator, 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 and it clicks in automatically, and they put you through to an operator.
3 operators.
Just scream it, though. You've got to shout it, and you've got to sound irate, and that happens.
What annoys me is, or if you want to speak to an operator, press hash or whatever. You think, well, that's sensible. You press hash, and then they subdivide you again. Would this query be about whatever? Anyway, Kate, let's talk about the man that runs the BBC, Tim Davie, and what is he saying about how he's going to make these savings that Nadine Dorris, the Culture Secretary, wants to bring in?
Well, according to the article in the Daily Mail, he's going to, first of all, he says he's suggesting BBC Two should be axed. Now, I think this is just a ridiculous scare story right away to try and get the people who he thinks probably watch BBC Two more, who are likely to campaign.
Yeah. Not BBC Three.
BBC Two. And, you know, the whole thing is ridiculous. I have to say, I thought Nadine Dorries' statement the other day was actually very good, if she means it. Because I do genuinely believe that the licence fee, the era of the licence fee is gone. I mean, you cannot have somebody just getting a television, never ever wanting to watch BBC, and there are a lot of people like that now, and having to pay 157 pounds. It's just not on. But they could save money so well by, and I'm not just talking about cutting salaries, but that is something everybody, you know. I mean, I'm sorry, but Gary Lineker, who's blocked me actually on Twitter, so I can say this. Oh, has he? All right. Well, I mean, Gary Lineker getting that amount of money for doing, you know, an interesting job and probably doing it extremely well, and people watch him and like him, but you cannot justify that when you're asking pensioners to pay.
When you're talking about cutting pay, believe me, I see this. You do not want to cut researchers, producers,
absolutely.
Whatever. And honestly, Kate, as a programme maker, as a presenter, I look and I say, how do they make these programmes on the budgets that they have? And independent companies don't benefit from it. The viewers don't benefit from it. The staff are worked into the ground with this sort of thing. There are no winners with this at the end of the day. And you're right, you've got to look at obvious situations. You say, look, listen, I could present that programme and, you know, £5 grand's a good payday. That's all right. But you can't be looking at someone and saying, you know, they're getting £1 million a week or whatever it happens to be. It's just...
No, but also that, you know, that there seems to be a middle management level of people who, what do they actually do?
They box tick.
Yeah.
They box tick with everything, and they make sure... honestly, I wouldn't even, because I'll sound extreme if I start talking about it, but you would not believe when you have to do a programme, the conditions that are laid down for the production team, what they have to box tick on. And you think, really? Or you think, well, surely this doesn't apply to me. Look, I do a lot of stuff out of Northern Ireland for the BBC, fantastic people to work for, really quality, good stuff. And I admire the production teams. I don't know, a day in the BBC, if you say you work a day, it's 12 hours. It's not 7.5 hours with a lunch break or whatever it is. It's 12 hours. It's very, very tiring. But some conditions you go and you say, but that doesn't apply to us in Northern Ireland. That we're different. You know, the same way as Wales will be different, or Scotland will be different, or whatever. But from central London, they'll go, no. You must do that. And the ridiculousness of staff and people that they have to fly in
to do that.
Tick that box.
And another little thing, if you are going on BBC Northern Ireland, they get you a car, perhaps, it's ordered from London. I mean, there's all sorts of ridiculous things.
I used to do a debate show that was in Belfast.
Yeah.
And they used to fly me over to do it, and I think Susanna Reid presented it.
Yes, it was Sunday morning.
Yeah, everybody had been flown in apart from the makeup person.
No, you're absolutely right.
And that to me is mad.
But you had to tick the box to say we give programmes in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
But if those jobs are not going to the people who live in Northern Ireland, what the heck is the point? It is simply box ticking.
We are going to see lots of scare stories. They're going to come out all on the whole BBC thing, because I think it's touched a nerve out in the country who genuinely feel something has to happen.
Where they lost it with me was the over 75 type.
They didn't need to do that.
There's lots of things you can forgive, but not this. You just look.
But they're hassling people, Eamonn. You know, I get letters from people. They literally hassle you with so many letters, and in the end, somebody desperately just goes and pays it, and you know, it's just not right.
I think there needs to be a mixed economy. He needs to cut out swathes of middle management that are not necessary. He needs to look at which bits can be privatised, which bits of the archive could be monetised.
Yeah.
It just needs a more imaginative approach, and dare I say, it needs a business type approach. And that's what's wrong with the BBC.
Yeah, they're trying to do too much.
Boys club.
Too much at one. And I do say, Kate, though, and I suspect you might agree with me, I know the time is up and the business modelling is up, but I think maybe we might all agree that maybe John wouldn't. I always say you'll miss it when it's gone.
No, I agree.
Oh, well, yes, I think. But it doesn't need to go. And people who want to... I mean, there is no reason why, when so many people pay for other things now, to watch Netflix and Sky and all of that...
But you're not going to get local broadcasting there. You're not going to get local jobs there. You're not. There's so much that you're not going to get for your community through radio and television that the BBC does serve.
Yes, but they could get rid of a lot of the other stuff that wasn't around when we were growing up. There was BBC did things, and you knew that was, you watched the cup final, you watched all the big royal events, and that was what.
Can I just say one thing on local radio? The only part of the licence fee I would defend, BBC local radio should be protected, and regional telly, but BBC local radio, if you listen to it now, it's turned into sub-radio too. They're playing the Carpenters and stuff. It should be all talk. So if you're listening to it in Belfast or if you're listening in Birmingham, they shouldn't be intelligible. You know, if you've come from Belfast and you're listening to BBC WM, for example, you shouldn't really understand what they're talking about. It should be that local.
That distinctive.
That local. It should be about council meetings. It should be about the local football, the rugby
Totally
team.
agree.
And they've abandoned all that to play the Carpenters and pretend they're Jeremy Vine. I'm sorry.
But you know the other thing they do? No matter what station it is, they're in mad pursuit of youth.
Yes,
right?
well said.
And youth don't watch the way that we watch.
Yeah.
So every programme, no matter who you are, they're looking for somebody 18 to 25 watching, when really the audience for most programmes is 35 plus.
Yeah, and that's what the BBC's done gradually over the last few years. That's what they're interested in. And all those people who are at home who don't have much else to do or can't get out are dependent on the BBC. And I think, if they haven't got the money to pay for anything else, then that's where they've gone wrong.
Danny Kelly, who's a great
And that's not getting into any of the bias that we saw.
Danny Kelly is a great
Brexit.
presenter, and he's been doing bits on this station, contributing on this station. He basically got the sack for being white,
too old,
and appealing to old brummies.
Yeah.
They loved him. They loved him because that was the audience of WM. And I'm sorry, this is where they're going wrong. Absolutely. And they put, may I say, kids in charge of these stations effectively, who don't understand the audience, but worse, Eamonn, and you know this is so important, they don't respect the audience.
Well, most of them aren't trained, and a lot of them aren't very good. And you think the audience is stupid. You go out there, but what they are is they're often cheaper, because the older you get, the more expensive you are, because you've been around for so long. But we were doing Vox Pops from Mansfield this morning, and this is the thing: to treat the audience like idiots. People are so well informed. People are so smart. They know as much about football as Gary Lineker does. They know as much about politics as you do.
Absolutely.
They're really clued in.
And that's the problem with politicians. Sometimes they treat the public as if they don't actually understand. The public understand far, far more. And you find that when you're out talking to people.
Totally agree. So here we are. We are GB News. Remember, we are on your side. Remember that. We're going to talk about vaping here. This is in the Sun, John, yeah?
Yeah, they're going to put vaping on the NHS.
What are we going to pay for people to vape?
It's to help them get off cigarettes. That's the policy. I was just talking to Kate about this in the green room. And I said, yeah, it's all well and good, but I've just walked behind a guy who was vaping and the smell makes me sick. It's better than tobacco. I guess it is a good initiative, but where do you extend this to?
But I heard vaping was bad for you.
Well, the jury's
less
out
bad.
again,
Is
isn't
it less
It's
bad?
less bad. But I don't know. I've never been a smoker. What do you think, Kate?
Well, I've never smoked either. I knew somebody who smoked at the age of 12, and their mother found them and brought them in and sat them down on the settee and made them smoke a whole packet of 20, and they never touched a cigarette. But vaping, I do think, I was worried at the time. It sounded like they were going to ban it. And I mean, you can't
Only
do
a
it
few
in
months
all
ago.
sorts of places.
Yeah.
But I think I'm always wary of, how many people will then get it who don't really need to get if it's free. But I think we should encourage people to vape rather than smoke.
You do you?
Yeah, I hate cigarette smoke. I've never liked it, but I've never been a banning person.
Yeah.
And I think, some people desperately need to smoke, and sometimes the way you have to go and they have to find some little tiny room somewhere at the back of Beyond.
I used to remember, particularly when I lived in Manchester, and I'd get a cab at whatever it was, 5 o'clock in the morning to go into work. And just how you dealt with the cigarette smoke. I mean, matter of fact, the driver was probably smoking as he was driving you.
And also, I think, we slag off Tony Blair for many things, but the smoking ban in public places actually has worked. It has reduced cancer. I know on a libertarian point of view, it isn't fair, but was it fair that everybody smoked? And, you know, the example you just gave. So I think it has been a good public health policy, and I think it's been the right approach. And, you know, I now think all we need to do is get people to stop smoking outside the entrance to a hospital.
Well, I got to get you two to stop talking now. That is the first newspaper review today. The guys will be back in an hour's time, and then again at about 20 to 9. Hope you can join us for that. Isabel.
Yes, and Eamonn and I will be back at 7 o'clock. We'll be asking, are you worried about rising inflation and how it will pull on your purse strings? We'll be discussing that in a few moments. See you then.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Here we are halfway through the week and not even halfway through our programme, so hope you enjoyed the first hour. This is the second hour beginning at 7 o'clock, and that is the time on this January the 19th.
Yeah, this is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. We're live across the whole of the UK on your TV and on your radio, so wherever you are, remember you can take us with you on YouTube and on the GB News app.
You're very right about that app. That's
It's
a good
great.
idea,
Yeah, it's great now.
And you can even have all your best bits. So say you want to watch the newspaper review or the lead story or whatever it is, it breaks it down into, what do they say, bite-sized.
Bite-sized chunks.
Bite-sized chunks. I fancy a bit of bite-sized something.
7 o'clock's munching
I
hour.
like bite-sized bounty bars. You know?
Not at this time.
No,
It's all
why
about
not?
orange
Why
juice
would
and
you not
croissants here.
Why would
You can't
you
eat
not?
chocolate before about at least 6 p.m. at the earliest, possibly later.
God, I do.
After dinner.
That's probably what's wrong with me. Coming up this morning, Red Wall MPs have been hatching the so-called pork pie plot to oust Boris Johnson.
It follows a car crash interview in which the PM said he was never warned the Bring Your Own Booze party was against his own rules. Our political editor and former Red Wall advisor will both be here to explain all.
Why did he need warned? That's what I'm going to be asking Darren about that. If he's setting the rules, oh, Prime Minister, that might be, you can't do that. Meanwhile, he's expected to announce an easing of Plan B coronavirus restrictions in England. So, the pandemic, are we moving on from it? Is it time to put it well and truly behind us?
Plus, this hour we'll be breaking down the latest inflation figures and explaining what this means for the pound in your pocket when we're joined by the Shadow Business Secretary later in the programme.
You can join any of the discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews, or you can tweet at GBNews.
OK, our top story this hour, and Boris Johnson's bracing himself for another tough day in Westminster. Not only will he come face to face with Sir Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's questions, but he's also facing down a rebellion of Red Wall MPs in his own party in a so-called pork pie plot.
OK, last night, Conservative backbench MP Andrew Bridgen told GB News that he knew of at least 20 MPs who will submit letters of no confidence. Let's not hear what he said. It teases me up again that I think I'm going to see and hear this. This is obviously a flaw, producer, in the script today, so let's have that sorted. Telegraph's reporting an additional number of MPs are ready to submit letters of no confidence, 54 needed in total by the end of Prime Minister's questions. Yet again this week, that is going to be a very, very good watch. Now, let's go to the man who knows about all of these things, and that's our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, today. And, it's the pressure is not easing up on Boris Johnson. I thought there was a few times he could have wiggled out if things are moved on, but we're waiting for that report, aren't we?
Yeah, indeed. Sue Gray, this famous Sue Gray, who's carrying out these investigations, who must be said, every time we think she's about to report, then there's another claim of another party that she has to investigate. She is now talking to Dominic Cummings, we learned yesterday. Clearly, he's at the heart of many of these allegations. I think where we're at with in terms of the letters, clearly some Conservative MPs have run out of patience with the Prime Minister and some of the allegations about what is happening. And they
see, Darren, I think the thing is, do you know what Isabel thinks is? He's got a reputation for telling porky pies, right? So that sort of sticks with people. And this, I'm just trying to get that exact quote that I read there, but the idea that he didn't know that he was breaking the law.
No one warned me.
No one warned me.
It was against the rules.
And you think, you Egypt, come out every night on television to say, well, this is the situation we want you to keep your distance, we want you to do. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, so I'm going to be very fair to Boris Johnson here, that was specifically in a question. Do you remember there was these allegations about an email that was sent about a bring your own booze party in the garden? And the allegation, and this gets down to the nub of where we're at the moment, essentially the Prime Minister is claiming he did not know that this event was going to happen, and when he turned up, he thought it was a work event. Dominic Cummings, on the other hand, is suggesting he is lying. He's saying he's lied to Parliament about this. He was saying that he and others specifically warned the Prime Minister before that party in the garden that it was a party and that it needed to be cancelled. And so when he was asked yesterday, that response, it was a bit of a candid response, I would say, but it was specifically him saying, I was not told beforehand or warned beforehand that this was breaking the rules, i.e. no one came ahead of that party and said, this is a party, it shouldn't be happening. His argument is he walked into the Downing Street garden, he walked around for 25 minutes talking to staff, thinking it was a work event, but frankly, as some journalists put it to the Prime Minister yesterday, that seems pretty ridiculous. That in the middle of lockdown, in May, this is May 2020, the first lockdown, when everyone was literally stuck at home, that you would walk into a garden, notice that staff were drinking, eating off tables, sausage rolls and the like, that you would not think that this is a party and that it is against the rules. Considering a cabinet minister had been on the TV 45 minutes earlier in Downing Street telling people you're not allowed to mix with anyone or just with one other person outside your house.
Yeah, reports in some of the papers this morning that he actually gave a speech at that party. He wasn't just walking around, that he was sort of welcoming people and giving a speech. I don't know if that's true or not, obviously.
Say, well done.
Yeah.
It's almost on the, and this is why it's, again, difficult, because people have been asked to believe Dominic Cummings, who got into his own events where he broke the rules. And it comes down to people laughed and ridiculed and simply didn't believe this idea that he travelled to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight. And this is the same thing where people have been asked to believe something that, frankly, lots of people think is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, and look, so we're talking about two people who are known to have told porky pies in the past, and yet we've got this pork pie plot, which I think is going to be the most said phrase, along with febrile today, about the atmosphere in Westminster.
Just explain this. Why is it called...
This is the Red Wall MP.
Are they calling it pork pie because the lies are so obvious, or what?
No. So Alicia Kearns, who is the MP from Melton Mowbray, is being judged, and Melton Mowbray, of course, famous for its pork pies, is judged to be kind of one of the plotters against the Prime Minister, something that must be said that she denies, and that is why it's been dubbed it must be said somewhat derogatory by some of the Prime Minister's supporters, who frankly are saying to these new intake of MPs that were elected back in 2019 that you owe your job to Boris Johnson. If it wasn't for Boris Johnson, you would not have won these seats in the north of England and the Midlands. It is his support in those constituencies that means that you're in Parliament. But at the same time, the reverse argument is, given where public opinion now is, and there is a poll suggesting the Prime Minister is almost as unpopular as Theresa May was before she left office, that they fear that those constituencies have got such small majorities that they could lose the seats in the next election. And frankly, they've given up hope in Boris Johnson. And I think that in the end, that's what's most dangerous, is that this relationship with Boris Johnson for lots of MPs, not for all of them, but for lots of them, has been transactional. I.e., we like you, we support you because you're popular with the public, but when that goes, you might have to go
Not only is he popular with the public, he has this extra, which is called the cut-through factor, right? So you would have to be looking at a successor who's guaranteed cut-through. Is there anyone stands out to you with that?
So I think one of the things that's in Boris Johnson's favour in terms of him staying where he is, and, you know, things moved very fast yesterday, but the day before it seemed that actually there was a bit of a reprieve and he might well hold on. We don't know. Frankly, we don't know how many letters are in. We do not know how this is going to play out. We do not know what Sue Gray is going to say. It is entirely possible the Prime Minister hangs on to his job, so we should not get carried away. Additionally, though, one of the things that works in his favour is who replaces him. There is no obvious successor. We've got Rishi Sunak, for example, the Chancellor, who wasn't given his fulsome support to the Prime Minister yesterday, interestingly. Yet will his support, and he is the most popular Cabinet Minister amongst Conservative supporters, would that win over people in the north of England?
Conservative supporters or the general public?
Yes.
I mean, I heard that Liz Truss was the most popular. I mean, who am I? You know these things. You can see why Liz Truss ticks boxes. You can see why Sunak, to the general audience, might have more appeal.
Yeah, indeed, because he's been handing out billions and billions of pounds over the last 2 years.
He looks the part.
He looks the part. No, and he's clearly very clever, and he's in many ways. Looking at, we've got inflation figures out this morning. It looks like they're up again. You know, there's difficult things ahead for the economy. Liz Truss, of course, is another candidate. In saying that, often in Conservative Party races, though, it's not the leading candidates that you may well think actually get the job. John Major came from number. David Cameron wasn't expected to beat David Davis.
Boris
back in the
Johnson
day.
wasn't even in the cabinet when he came in.
Well, and even Theresa May, you have to remember, that was Boris Johnson's to lose until Michael Gove ran. So sometimes people talk about Nadine Zahawi, the Education Secretary, could well get a job. Jeremy Hunt made it clear yesterday he's still interested. I think it's unlikely, but he's still interested. But as I say, that plays in the Prime Minister's favour because there is no obvious successor. And people would make the argument these are midterm blues. This happens to every government. And in the end, essentially, MPs need to stick with the agenda. There's a couple of years through to the next general election that Boris Johnson can recover from that. But there is this big split within the Conservative Party at the moment. I think between the old guard of MPs, who maybe have been round the block a couple of times, who have got safe seats, normally in the south of England, and these new intake of MPs who total more than 100, so essentially nearly a third of the parliamentary party, who frankly, at the moment are saying, we just don't buy this. We don't like where it's going. We don't know when it's going to end. And in the end, some of them just don't believe what the Prime Minister is saying.
And just lastly, how would you describe what you saw from the Prime Minister yesterday? We're going to see him in PMQs today. I mean, how seriously is he in trouble?
He's in real trouble. I keep saying this. He is fighting for his political life. And I think you watched that video yesterday, Isabel, and you know he is. Some MPs said it looked like a dramatic performance, that he was putting some of this on, particularly when he was questioned on...
His eyes were bloodshot. He looked really
He looked browbeaten to me. I think there might have been a few amateur dramatics. It's up to people to decide around when he hung his head in shame around the allegations about parties before the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. In saying that, he, of course, this is a job he's always wanted. He knows he's in difficulty. It must be incredibly stressful for him. In a large part, actually, he has gotten here, in part because of decisions he made, but largely, actually, decisions in Downing Street, often when he wasn't there, among staff that he probably trusted, who've got him into this mess. I think also what you've touched upon is his performance at Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday, far from winning people over, seemed to raise more questions than answers. I think many MPs, again, seeing the Prime Minister's interview yesterday and the quotes that you came up with, again felt actually it did him more harm than good. And that is why PMQs, 12 o'clock today, will be fascinating, crucial, and in the end actually could determine what happens, whether more MPs put in more letters later today.
Oh, it's going to be
Darren, fascinating. Thank you. Could listen to you all day. Thank you very much indeed. We're now going to listen to the Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen, who told Dan Wootton on GB News last night that 20 MPs will submit letters of no confidence.
Yeah, let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Do you believe this report from Christopher Hope to be correct?
Yes, because I was with him when they told him.
Really? So it's happening? 20
It's going to happen.
MPs.
I think that will push over the 54 required to trigger a confidence motion vote.
And you believe that there's already 34 letters submitted in that case?
I think it'd be very, very close to that number, yes.
Well, to hear more thoughts on this, we're joined now by the former Conservative Red Wall advisor, Oscar Reddrop. Oscar, always good to get your thoughts, because this is very much now being driven by the Red Wall MPs, of course, who you were advising.
Yeah, this is, I mean, things have changed quite drastically since over the weekend. Those Red Wall MPs have gone back to their constituencies and they've been, I think, pretty shocked by the reaction they've been met with by their constituents. The one thing I would say, I think you can really over kind of intellectualise politics a little bit, and this comes, so much of this is about gut, like real gut feeling, and those MPs are going to be sat in Parliament today and really deeply examining that and thinking, what is my future? What is the future of the party? And ultimately, what is the future of the country from this moment on? I would really urge caution here. As you know, we spoke, not too long ago. I would really urge a bit of patience and caution. Of course, when you went back to your constituencies this weekend, you were met with, a great deal of upset and anger. But the tough thing sometimes is to not make a decision today or in the next coming days in terms of Boris' future, an emotional one. Try and remain patient and see if this can be ridden out.
Have you been speaking to Red Wall MPs specifically? I mean, Deanna Davison's one of them that's being named. Alicia Kearns has also been named. I mean, what is that true? Do you suspect that the papers have got this right, that they are the ringleaders in all of this? Reportedly 100 of them.
I think ringleaders is a really loaded term. I think there are several MPs who are getting together, having conversations, talking this through. I think the other thing that you need to bear in mind, slightly more senior members of the government and senior MPs will be saying, look, guys, this is just how it works. If you take into account COVID, these guys haven't been walking around Parliament and Westminster, for maybe more than a year. Yeah. And actually, there'll be a lot of senior members of government who are saying, guys, things get very, very, very tough sometimes. Things do get febrile.
What do the whips say? I mean, can these people be whipped?
I think what they would be saying, or, it's a bit grand for me to be advising whips. But what the advice would be, think of the alternatives, guys. Hold your nerve. Boris Johnson put you in your seat. Boris Johnson allowed the Conservative Party to reach parts of the UK that have never been reached before. Yeah. What is the alternative? What is the alternative?
There's a 13-point lead for the Labour Party. Are you saying that may not be all that it first suggests, or that it seems?
We forget there have been times where they were 15 points behind with Theresa May at points. Of course they are. I mean, it's just obvious, isn't it? Of course things are very rough right now.
I'll read you a quote. David Cameron and George Osborne were 13 points behind in the polls for 3 years. And as Thatcher said, if you aren't behind in the polls midterm, you aren't working hard enough as a government.
Well, they were 13 points behind, and hey, they won. The Tories still won the next election after that. Of course things are bad now. Of course they're behind in the polls. But really, do we really think we'll be talking about I mean, and this is a question. I'm not applying my personal views to this. Do we think we will be talking about Partygate by the time the next election rocks up?
I tell you
it's a
what,
question.
We'll be talking about cost of living, Oscar. For the moment, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah,
Those figures have come in for inflation. 5.4 inflation has come in at year on year for December. That is the highest figure going back over 30 years, March 1992. Let's now go to Liam Halligan, who has just been crunching those numbers and telling us exactly what they mean. Okay, Liam, what do you make? Is this a nightmare scenario? Is this worse than you expected, better than you expected?
It is a bit worse than I expected, Eamonn. I said to you half an hour ago, inflation would go up a bit from 5.1% in November. It's gone up to 5.4% in December, much higher than a lot of people expected. And it's not just the consumer price index, it's also what we call the retail price index, the RPI, a measure of inflation that ministers tell us isn't used anymore. But if you know where to look on the ONS database, you can see it. And the RPI number, Eamonn, hold on to your hat, it's at 7.5%.
Wow.
Now, in my view, the RPI is a much, much more realistic measure of inflation, not least because it's the measure of inflation that your phone company, that the train companies use to increase the charges. It's the rate of inflation upon which the rent for social housing, council houses, is set. So this RPI inflation number is the one that really hits our viewers in their pockets, in their purses, in their wallets. And that number isn't at 5.4%, Eamonn, which is the headline number. It's at 7.5%. So that's higher than the headlines are telling us.
Yeah, look, so, what is driving this? Why are we seeing these increases in inflation, and which effectively are just not keeping up with is going ahead of people's wages and making people feel worse off? Why is it happening?
We've been banging this drum, Isabel, on the Money Show, 1 o'clock, Monday to Friday, since it began in September. The first monologue I did is inflation is back in September. It's happening partly because of the pandemic. It's a global phenomenon. The overall world economy is trying to get back into gear, trying to supply the goods and services people want and are demanding. But that supply isn't always there because of those supply chain issues, because of those logistical issues. So when you get increasing demand without supply meeting it, then prices go up. It's also energy bills, utility bills, that energy price cap, which went up very sharply in October. It's set by Ofgem, the regulator, and it's going to go up again, I'm afraid, in April. That's why we're running our Scrap the VAT campaign on the money across GBNews, because we know those energy bills really hit hard-pressed households hard. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation yesterday came on my show and said that some of the poorest households, they're going to be spending after April, when this price cap goes up, get this, half their household disposable budget on their utility bills. We're going to hear a lot more in the next few weeks about the choice that many people make in our country between heating and eating.
Yeah, look, people really care about this, Liam. Stay where you are. We're just going to play some Vox Pops that our East Midlands reporter got, Will Hollis, yesterday from Mansfield, getting people's views on this very issue, and we'll come back to you afterwards.
I can't explain it. Not that clever.
Not really. I don't really follow any of it like that now. I don't take any notice of it. So, no, not really.
Not really, no. I feel like, because I work, so I get money, but I don't really know anything to do with finance.
The higher the interest or inflation is, obviously the harder it is for people that, because sort of like, say, a 5% pay rise on very little doesn't mean anything, but 5% if you're on 60 grand a year means you get a lot better return.
All I know is that money goes up, it constantly goes up. No one wants it to go up, and I don't understand why it does, but I just know that it does. And at the end of the day, I've got no money. That's essentially it.
Can you just explain to me how inflation works?
Well, not really, couldn't you?
No,
not really.
Really works.
No, not really. It's just they keep putting it up, and that's about it.
Being the older generation, we've always had to watch our money and budget. And we do try and take care of what we spend most of the time. You know.
Money doesn't go up. Money goes up a little bit, but nowhere near as much as the inflation.
Yeah, well, I had the misfortune of being in the 70s and saw rip-roaring inflation. It was great for people who had money because, you know, you could get 15% interest on your savings. You know, can you imagine that nowadays, getting that sort of return? And young people who'd taken out mortgages saw their mortgage rates double overnight, and it was crippling for them, and it set them back several years. One of the problems nowadays is I think young people and middle-aged people who've got mortgages have got used to very, very low interest rates, and we could be living in a fool's paradise when things start to turn and inflation roars again.
I do know how the money works, and I know how expensive it's got, and how it's going to inflate. It makes you wonder what's going to happen anyway, but at my age, why should we worry?
Well. There you go, Liam. So what do you make of that? I mean, people really do care about this.
What I make of that is that if you put a question to people, can you explain inflation, then they're not going to have all the latest macroeconomic theories to hand when they're out doing their shopping. But they know, ordinary people know when prices are going up and their wages aren't keeping up or their pensions aren't keeping up with those price rises. And that's exactly what's happening now. We had numbers out yesterday, Isabel, that wages went up on average 3.8% at the back end of last year. And now we read inflation is 5.2%, and inflation, a better measure of inflation, the measure we should be using, in my humble view, is up at 7.5%. Even if it's 5.4%, what that means is, I've done some sums here, you lose half your money every 12 years if you've got a chunk of cash sitting in the bank. That's what inflation does. It makes it difficult for firms to invest. It impacts jobs. All eyes now are on the Bank of England. They're going to meet the Monetary Policy Committee, the group of economists that set that base interest rate. Interest rates are now pretty much certain, I would say, to go up again in February. They went up at the back end of last year. So that's good if you're a pensioner with savings, because hopefully the banks will pass on those interest rate rises. They always drag their feet and take their time, of course, in doing that. But if you're indebted, if you've got a variable rate mortgage, if you've got other personal debt, then the cost of that debt is likely to rise. So this sounds arcane, this sounds difficult stuff, but this impacts everybody. And I would say to you, as and when Partygate obsessions and all the Downing Street shenanigans, our focus on that changes, this cost of living squeeze is really going to burst through into politics, because it's what people really care about.
Okay,
it's the pound in
everyday
their
life.
pocket.
Well, you will be carrying there, you're hearing from Liam, that the rate of inflation for December year on year, the cost of living 5.4%, but he's more worried by the retail price index, which is not reported on, sitting at 7.5. Either way, not good soundings. Liam, thanks for keeping us up to date. Appreciate you breaking that news to us. We'll take a break there with the latest sports news with Paul Coit right after this. We're talking about transfer rumours in the football market. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Isabel is very excited this morning, and it's good because you're seeing sunshine, you're seeing winning, you're seeing Emma Raducanu doing very, very well.
She is the antidote to all of the front pages of the papers at the moment. She's a little ray of sunshine, as you say, and she's finally found her groove again, Paul Coit.
She is. I knew it was going to happen. I think we've said it before. You know, they were worried about, oh, it's gone, it's not going to happen. This is going to be her tournament. I don't know about you.
I hope so.
How nervous were you, though, Isabel, in that third set?
No, definitely.
After the second one.
Yeah, and I thought, here we go again. And we've seen her wobble in the past, but I've cleared the diary for Thursday, and I'm making sure I'm ready to devote my day to watching Emma Raducanu hopefully demolish. Who's she playing next?
She is playing, I'll tell you who she's playing. It is Danica Kovanic.
OK, does she stand a good chance?
Yeah, she's 19. She should beat her. I don't want to... I know, I've already said it. I'm sorry, I don't want to end up putting the mockers on it. But I thought she looked fantastic. You know, she came off the back of COVID. She hadn't hit a tennis ball for like a couple of weeks. Goes out there. I mean, the first set was brilliant. Sloane Stephens, and she's a former US Open champion herself. 64 in the world, but she's better than that. Started off very slow. I thought Emma was fantastic. Then Stephens came back, and then she won the second set very easily. I was worried. I thought we were going to be in trouble, and then I thought she was faultless. I thought she was fantastic.
It's fantastic tennis. And doing well for the Brits. Andy Murray also got through.
Yeah, Andy Murray's through as well. See, it's 3 years, and it's back. He's now back at the Australian Open. It was all a little bit embarrassing, wasn't it? That last game that he played, when everybody thought he was retiring, where he was injured and he actually wasn't retiring. They're putting the videos on. There's people saying, oh, Andy, how we'll miss you. And he's like, well, actually, I'm still here. I just haven't retired yet. It's just I'm just injured.
Gone away.
And now he's back, and he's looking so strong.
Yeah.
Again, 5 sets. He puts us through the ringer, but that's what Andy does.
Yeah.
So I thought both of them were fantastic.
Can't wait. I love it.
Let's turn to football in the Premier League last night. Surprise shock result. So Chelsea, you can either look at dropping points or Brighton gaining points. 1-1 draw.
Absolutely. Chelsea are on a little bit of a wobble at the moment, I think it's fair to say. They'll complain again about playing so many games. They are playing a lot. They've got 4 days off now. Thomas Tuchel was saying yesterday, and I don't know about this, is something that for me, I don't really like when he was going, oh, well, Brighton, you know, it was like a cup final for them. You know, it was like a cup match. And the way the fans and the way they celebrated the draw, of course they're going to. And you get a lot of big teams, especially top 4 teams, that seem to use that, I always find, when they play a so-called lesser team and think, oh, yeah, well, they tried. So what? I mean, isn't everybody supposed to try?
You know, I look at Man United's track record against lower-level teams in the league. People, you know, are down there at the relegation zone. Not good. Yeah. Not good. And, you know, that's, you know, if you have to expect, if you see that they're going to raise their game, then do something about it.
So I don't know about you, Eamonn, but when I hear, oh, well, it's going to be really tricky because they're fighting relegation, at the end of the day, they're in the relegation area for one reason, and that's because they're not as good as many of the other sides. So why should it be harder to play against them? It's just a lot of smoke and mirrors.
So great result for Brighton last night.
Very good.
Now, this
absolutely.
Vacancy at Everton with Rafa gone now. Some interesting names in the mix now. Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah.
He's currently in charge and will stay so. We don't know for how long, but... they've turned to Duncan again, and he's there.
Well, Howard Kendall, of course, the former manager of Everton, who's no longer with us, His wife gave Duncan Ferguson last time he was in charge. I don't know if you remember that. It was Howard's watch. So he wore his watch as a tribute to his old boss, and he went very well, and then he wasn't given the permanent role. So I don't know whether he's got the watch again, but he's going to be taking care of things. There's the other thing. I saw that Jose Mourinho is now in the frame. Now, I just think surely Everton wouldn't turn to Jose.
No.
You know, if it was 15 years ago, Manchester United have had problems with him, Spurs have had problems with him.
Would they
not
turn
working for
to
Roma.
Wayne Rooney? Would
Well,
they turn to
exactly.
Frank Lampard? I mean, you know, you could say, you know, Wayne Rooney, he's accounted for himself quite well so far.
done really well.
Managerial stakes.
It's the ultimate job for Wayne Rooney, just like Chelsea was the ultimate job for Frank Lampard. But people were saying maybe it's too early after he came, strangely, ironically, from Derby and then went to Chelsea. It didn't work out and it seemed that it was too early for him. So where does that leave him now as a manager? Wayne Rooney's got that problem where he's got to make the right decision of where he goes now.
When you look at Wayne Rooney, like his little bones were hardly formed when he became a player. Was it too early for him? No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, he was in there and he did what he had to do. And so it's not completely ridiculous, is it?
It's not completely ridiculous, but as a manager, it's kind of different as a player, because I think as a manager, when you go in, you've got to get it right. Because if you move from Derby to Everton, if it didn't work for him, then where does he go? Does he have to start apprenticeship again and work his way up? It's the ultimate job, I would imagine, for Wayne Rooney, and it's a job he'd love, but whether it's going to happen,
Just
I'm not
give
sure.
me a quick one on Paul Pogba, out through injury, but it seems that our interim manager, Mr. Ralph, there is deciding, let's play him just to get rid of him, basically. And there's not many Man United fans that'll be weeping too much about that.
Short term, if he's going to perform, if he wants to leave, and he's going to go out and he's going to play very well for you, we'll take
Why
it,
not?
right?
Why
Stick
not?
him out there, and if he plays well, that's what you want. You want the best players to play for your side, whatever their intentions. If they're playing well now, get them out there and get them playing.
What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
United play Brentford tonight at Brentford.
Yes.
That's where they are.
How
Paul,
are you feeling about that?
See, now I'm interested, because I like the Brentford story, just because they're the underdogs, and it'd be quite amazing to have someone like Christian Eriksen involved.
Oh, yes, Christian Eriksen.
See, Christian, and someone I know very well from his time at Tottenham. You know, we know what happened, obviously, with him during the summer. Can't play in Italy because he's not allowed a defibrillator in his heart. They won't allow that.
Yeah.
But he could play in the Premier League. Brentford look very interested. Lots of Danes there. I mean, it'd be a great story for him to go back. But I just...
You never know. You never know. We've got to take a break. Paul Coit, lovely. Thank you so much for coming in, as always. We've got the papers coming up next. Eamonn will be going through those. And after that, we're talking to the Shadow Business Minister, Jonathan Reynolds. Lots more coming your way. He'll be reacting to that breaking news that inflation is at 5.4%. See you in a moment.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk. Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
OK, let's get into the newspapers on this Wednesday morning. Thank you for your company, and thanks for the company of Baroness Kate Hoey, former Labour MP, now life peer in the House of Lords, and Mr John Gaunt, broadcaster. And very good. Why do you laugh at that? I was going to say all-round good egg.
Yeah, something like that, Eamonn.
Yeah, something like that, my friend. Right, so we're in here, and I'm trying to see what stories you've
Daily
got.
Mirror,
right.
isn't it? This
I have no idea, my friend. It tells me
Daily Mirror.
nothing. Dominic
Cummings. Dominic Cummings is going to be questioned now by the top civil servant who's doing this inquiry. And so my question is, why has it been allowed to drag on? Why has he been allowed to whisper in certain journalists and broadcasters' ears, spreading the poison? Now, whether it's true or not, and I've
It sells papers.
Yeah, it was just sell papers. I haven't got a clue. But frankly, I'm getting fed up with this whole party thing. And Dominic Cummings needs to come out, say what his accusations are, have it clearly in the open. Boris Johnson today is obviously going to answer. But, you know, all this nonsense about Boris is going to go, he's not. Where's he going to go? Who have they got to replace him? And like these Red Wall MPs, I really don't want to be rude to them, but they wouldn't have a job without Boris. Who got them the 80-seat majority? It wasn't these people who nobody had heard of who got the victory. It was Boris. It was Boris saying he would do Brexit. And although I'm not completely satisfied with the Brexit we got, Theresa May would not have delivered it. He delivered it. He delivered the majority. Then look at what else he's done. He's also sorted out COVID in terms of the vaccination. You cannot criticise him for that, really. Now, don't get me wrong, the parties were utterly wrong, and he needs to be condemned for that. But does he need to lose his job? And I actually, and I know I'm going to get loads of emails now, I felt sorry for him yesterday, especially when it was an arch hypocrite herself, and I won't mention her by name, a journalist who herself got suspended for having a party with her boss, who's a top presenter. I'm sorry, it all just stinks. It all just stinks. There is a culture of drinking in Downing Street, clearly, and in politics. But let me tell you, Eamonn, I don't think I need to tell you this, there's also a culture, or there was, of drinking in broadcasting and indeed in the main papers. And those without sin throw the first stone, so to speak. And I just think it's all nonsense. All of it is nonsense. And you better be careful what you wish for, because if they replace Boris, is Brexit then going to be in peril? That's what I say. I don't know what Kate thinks, but that's my view of it.
Well, there's a lot of people that would may like to see that reverse going on.
It was a democratic vote, my friend.
John making an impassioned plea for Boris Johnson to save his job. What do you think?
Well, I'm a bit like John in that I'm fed up with reading about all these parties, and I think the crucial thing for me is there's only one that the Prime Minister himself is actually personally was there. And if you look back to when that was, you know, it was literally a month after he had almost died. Yeah. He'd got out of hospital. Yeah. He was back into Downing Street. I'm quite clear that probably he did get asked to go down and thank some of the staff. Now, what people don't realise, or I think they don't realise, is Downing Street's not a little house with a few people in it and he's in the top flat. It's a huge complex, you know, that goes right through into the Foreign Office, links right through hundreds of civil servants working. It's a civil service building. It's a civil service building. Are we really saying that whoever is responsible for, you know, GBNews here is responsible for the work and the ethics of every single person who works here? And I just think, I mean, I have to say that the people who've come out first anti-Boris are the people who we would expect. There's only been, I think, one genuine Brexiteer who's come out very strongly. The rest, and he wasn't someone who was particularly popular within the campaign. And all the rest are people now. This is payback time. It is payback time for them as individuals because they dislike the fact that Boris really did get Brexit.
I mean, that's your
That's my opinion.
That's your analysis.
Well, yes.
But your political intuition and instinct on all of this as a I presume you're a Labour peer.
No,
as
I'm
well.
a former. I'm non-aligned now,
You're not
Eamonn,
aligned.
because the Labour Party reneged on its promise to honour the referendum, and when that happened, I left the Labour Party.
Okay.
But my instinct is that this is if they were going to get rid of Boris, it would not happen now. It will wait until after. The May elections are really important. How people do that.
Because who's going to take the blame for that? I mean, you stand back, see what happens.
Yes, I mean, then, obviously there is something concrete. But, people, I think out there around the country, I genuinely don't think people feel as angry about this. Individuals are, and overall there's a feeling that maybe the lockdown wasn't handled right and it came too quick. It didn't come quickly enough, but then was too harsh. And I think then, this is, I think the average person out there reading all these papers today will be just thinking, look, this has got to end. And I'm not sure that the way to end it, and I certainly don't think, is that Boris will go. I think they will not get 54 MPs unless the Sue Gray report comes out with something that is completely new and damning.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that Boris Johnson will still be Prime Minister because
and
who is going to be...
Kate, even if they get to 54, they've still then got to win.
Yeah,
the
do we
vote.
want a 3-month? Do they want a 3-month election
Precisely.
campaign
Good
going
point.
on while perhaps Russia's just invaded Ukraine or something like that? I mean,
You see, Sue Gray fascinates me. I want
oh
to know
yes,
more about her.
I thought
because-
you would have met her. And
No, never have.
You've never been in a pub in Newry.
Never. But
She ran it.
Get out of my pub. She's like Barbara Windsor, apparently.
Yeah, she's apparently was very good as a publican.
Yeah.
And actually, that pub in Newry, and you know Newry, managed to get people to come in from all communities.
All
so
communities.
It's interesting.
And,
So if you can sort out that.
Yeah, Kate and I are talking about this because Sue Gray is from Northern Ireland, and we gather very good. She had a pub in her time, very good at running it, and we reckon she was then a long-term civil servant.
And she took a career gap and went back
so
to Newry.
she is an interesting, not what you would expect to be part of the civil service elite.
Certainly not.
At Westminster.
No, and a very tough, but seen as very incisive, and someone who is not going to be, I can't use the word, but is not going to be taken in by
Yes.
what some people might want to say. And I think it'd be very interesting if she has to meet Dominic Cummings.
See, John, I'm listening to your defence of Boris Johnson there, fine, and I'm just making an observation. And I sit and listening to you as a working class lad, and I sit and think, have you been taken in? What have you or me got in common with Boris Johnson?
Yeah, well, I understand where you're coming from. I come from a working class background. But, I've managed to get rid of my chip because I don't think, I've met people. My daughter went to Oxford and we met loads of kids from Eton. You treat people by how they react. Now, I think he brought the lockdown, the first one in, too late. He did that and delayed over the Cheltenham Festival. And I criticised him heavily for that. However, other parts of what he's done, he's managed it well. And just because he went to Eton and just because...
But he hasn't got your life experience, a completely different life
no,
experience.
No, he hasn't, but then I haven't got his. And as a mature person, I'm looking at him in the round, and I'm sorry, yesterday, I'm going to upset the audience even more. He was being bullied yesterday by that woman. Being absolutely...
I don't know why...
Beth Rigby, I'll name her. You work with her. She got done for doing it, and then as an arch hypocrite, she attacks him.
Yeah, but I think, John, what that tells is he still has not got people around him who were able to stop him doing that. Why on earth was he doing an interview in a corridor with Beth Rigby with a ridiculous-looking mask on? It wasn't even a decent one. He's got the wrong people around him. There's clearly some pretty awful civil...
Image is a lot.
Yeah,
image counts
absolutely.
for a
But
lot.
sometimes that works for him. It has worked for him. When he got stuck on the tripwire, do you remember?
Oh, that was
great.
Nobody else would have got away with that. He did. And maybe he still thinks he can. And maybe he thinks the force of his personality Well, let's go through the candidates. Let's trust the charisma of the state.
Right.
No.
Okay, got what you mean.
That's why
we're talking about bullying there, and we're talking about. We're now going to talk about trolling with Isabel. No, we don't. We're now doing. What are we doing? We're talking about the inflation that is coming in at I think it's 5.4%, and the shadow business minister Isabel's now going to talk to him.
Yes, as Eamonn was saying, we broke the news this morning that inflation has increased to 5.4% in December. That is the highest in nearly 3 decades. And among the largest upward contributions, they've come from housing and household services, followed by transport. Well, Labour's Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Industrial Strategy, Jonathan Reynolds, joins us now. Very good morning to you. Look, we thought the figures were going to be bad. They are actually worse than many people were predicting. What's your reaction?
Well, it's very concerning indeed. A rise of this kind, as you said, it's the highest since 1992, but it means for households, it means a real terms cut in household budgets. It also means a real terms cut for pensioners for the first time in many, many years because of the suspension of the triple lock. And so, because we're getting this news now, and we know that in February there'll be the announcement on the energy retail price cap, and we haven't had that yet. You add that together and it is a hugely difficult picture for British households, and the government needs to respond to it.
Would you be responding to it then if Labour were in government?
Well, the first thing, the priority for us has got to be action to address those huge increases in energy bills which the country is facing. So we've laid out a package that would see for everyone a reduction of £200, and for the households most affected a reduction of £600. And we'd fund that through the revenue that comes to the Exchequer because of those higher gas prices, and as well as that, a one-off windfall tax on North Sea oil and gas operators. So we take VAT off fuel bills, we would extend the eligibility for what's called Warm Homes discount and increase that to £400, as well as change some of the levies that are currently put onto fuel bills. So it will be immediate action, the most help going to the people who are most in need, but some help for everyone, because even people on median incomes will be facing some real problems with fuel poverty this year unless there is an intervention from the government.
But it's not just going to be this year, is it? It's going to be for many years ahead. We've got a huge problem in getting affordable energy in this country, and having a one-off windfall tax and scrapping VAT in debt for a short period of time is not going to solve the problem long term. What will you be doing to try and address it in the long term?
Yes, I think that's a good question. I think fundamentally, there is a saying that you can't build a Swedish barn to the standards of an English house, and that's true. Our energy efficiency, our housing stock is much older than the rest of Europe. The amount of energy we use per home to fix that. So one of the reasons we've got that big pledge on an increase in climate investment is to reduce the overall burden on households by making sure they don't have to buy as much energy to begin with, and that's the only real long-term position to take. As well as that, to be frank, I think we've talked on this programme before about the decision a few years ago to reduce the UK's gas storage. I'm afraid that has really backfired very heavily on the government when they allowed what was called the rough storage facility in the North Sea to be wound down, because of course what we really should have at a time like this is capacity, is storage, where we bought gas when it was relatively cheaper, and we can release that onto the market now. So yes, there's been some huge problems and it requires a long-term response. I absolutely agree with that, but the fact is this year already, with those very significant increases in inflation, for what that will mean with households, if you add the energy price rise onto that as well, it's a situation which is very, very grave indeed.
Yeah, very grim, and arguably needs the full focus of the government. And for whatever reason, it does appear that the media, that Westminster itself, very distracted with what's been going on in terms of Partygate. My question to you is whether or not you think it's fair the way Boris Johnson's being attacked. Do you think that he's transgressed in a way that is worse than your leader, Sir Keir Starmer? Cheese and wine meeting versus a takeaway and a beer after a day's work?
Yeah, so the sound isn't great on that, but I think I got the question. I think it was about the government being distracted, focusing on those scandals of their own making and the problems that come from that, rather than focusing on the crisis, and I agree with that. In reference to that picture of Keir Starmer, there is absolutely, sorry, I can't hear, there is absolutely no comparison between being in a working environment in a by-election and taking some food in between meetings, with the systematic breaking of the rules we've now become aware of at the heart of government. And to be honest, I really resent the way the Conservative Party can't can't defend the Prime Minister, can't defend the behaviour of Downing Street, and are somehow trying to present it as everyone is in the same position, everyone was breaking these rules. They weren't. Everyone is not the same. This is on the government, this is on the Prime Minister, and it's they who have to be accountable for what they've done, rather than try and besmirch the reputation of other people.
Well, in defence of the government, they have said there is a full inquiry going on. Sue Gray will present her findings to Boris Johnson, and indeed he will then be answerable to Parliament.
Well, I'd ask, what is it we need to know? You know, what is it we haven't found out yet? We've had 4 completely different accounts from the Prime Minister. First of all, he was shocked to find out parties were happening, and I think the line yesterday was no one told him what his own rules meant, so there probably was a party, but he wasn't aware of what his own rules meant. It's ludicrous. Frankly, the setting up of an inquiry is like an episode of Westminster. It's an attempt to try and make this blow over, to see if the public are less angry in a few days' time. I don't believe a civil servant who works for the government can really produce a verdict on the political future of the Prime Minister. That is on members of Parliament, particularly clearly on Conservative members of Parliament, who are in a position to make and do the right thing. So, look, of course, we'll listen to that, but we already know, I think, enough to know what was going on was the complete failure of people at the top of government to be willing to adhere to the rules that the rest of the country was adhering to at that time. And on top of that, what the Prime Minister has said to Parliament hasn't clearly been truthful at all times, and that in itself is a very serious offence.
Yeah, of course, that's something that Boris Johnson denies. And, of course, if he is found to have misled Parliament, that, of course, is a resigning matter. But at the moment, nobody has been able to prove that he has been lying.
Well, I think I know enough. And I think, you know, we've started this programme talking about inflation and the seriousness of that, or of energy prices and the seriousness of that. And frankly, the government cannot respond because the Prime Minister is trying to pull himself out of this scandal of his own making, and the rest of the Cabinet are preparing their leadership bids. And it's not good enough. We demand, and we should be able to expect, a lot better from the government than what we are getting. And I think most people, looking at the price rises coming their way, whether that's on food, whether that's on energy, whether that's just on the fact that their wages will be a real terms cut this year and their household incomes will be a real terms cut, they're just so angry. I mean, at the weekend in my constituency, and every other MP has said the same thing when they got back this week, people were crossing the street to tell you how angry they were with the Prime Minister and how they want him to do the right thing, to resign, to allow the country to move on, to focus on the things that really matter, but also, frankly, to restore some dignity to the office of Prime Minister.
Jonathan Reynolds, Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Industry. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
It's 6 minutes now before 8 o'clock, and I'm going to talk to one of my favourite sports people now. When Rebecca Adlington, the swimmer, became a double gold medalist, it was back in 2008, Beijing Olympics. She was just 19 years old. You haven't changed a bit. Look at you there. Rebecca, good morning. Lovely to see you. And this obviously, you're 19. You train, that's your whole life, and then you're propelled into what is basically showbiz. You could call it the limelight. I mean, there are sporting pressures on you as well. I could go through why your wins were so important. First woman to win swimming gold for Great Britain in 48 years. First British swimmer to win 2 gold medals since 1908. We could go on. That is surely enough to make you a hero, for people to love you. But it didn't turn out that way. And we're here to talk about online trolling, about all of this. Tell me how bad it was and why it happened.
I don't know why it happened. I guess I think you constantly try and analyse or kind of go, oh, what have I done to those people? Or try and put yourself in their shoes. And I've simply stopped doing that because I won't ever understand it. I've never sent anyone a nasty message myself, or even slightly nasty. So I don't know, and I can't ever put myself in that position. I guess I think the thing is it comes part and parcel a little bit with social media when you gain that amount of followers, and unfortunately there are people on there, keyboard warriors, or that either want attention or something's not going right in their life, so they use that And obviously at the time I was 19, so it was really bad. I can fully say it has got a lot better since then. And I do think there is a really positive and great side of social media. And I've certainly seen that over the past couple of years.
But look at you. You're fizzing and you're brimming with positivity, which is lovely to see. I can see that, right? We can see that. That must have been a learning process for you, Rebecca, as well, because not everybody can deal with this. Not that you should have to deal with it, but you did deal with it.
Yeah, and there was no coping strategy. There was no guides. Nobody handed me a manual and said, here's how you deal with all of this. It was just kind of a little bit of process, a little bit of learning, a little bit of growing up as well, and part and parcel of it. I didn't always handle it probably in the right way. And there was many times that I was upset about it or let it bother me way too much than I probably should. But at the same time, I didn't know how else to deal with it. I just had to. And I just had to find a way to kind of keep moving forward.
As an athlete, you have stamina. You have mental stamina and you have physical stamina as well. So you were able to draw on your training as an athlete. We haven't got much time, so I'm just sort of summarising what goes on here. Tell me about why mental stamina is important. How do people get that? And what did you do with it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of defining that word strong, isn't it? I think the thing is, most people think strong is about being physically in shape, but I think it's about the emotional and mental side of things as well. And it's just, for example, even in January, everyone set New Year's resolutions, and most people's are about fitness. I want to go to the gym, or I want to get fit, or I want to eat healthy. Whereas actually, my strong commitment for this year is to look after myself, because actually I don't think people make enough to be kinder or to talk more, or things that are emotional and mental. And I hopefully people will consider both aspects, and that's why working with Fitbit on this strong campaign is so important to me, because I want people to start thinking about the other side of things. Obviously the physical is just as important, to be healthy and to be active, but also we need to consider the other parts of this.
Well, I know through Fitbit, you're asking people what's strong with you, and you've told us what's strong with you today, and you're redefining the meaning of physical strength. You're talking about mental strength, and I know you are a mental health ambassador. Rebecca, I wish I had more time to talk to you, because she's so inspiring.
Oh, gosh, I just wanted to say you are the absolutely perfect role model for my daughter and for young women growing up. You're strong mentally and strong physically, and just great to have people like you speaking up.
What I would say is, what's there not to like about Rebecca Adlington? That's what I would say, full stop.
Come back and talk to us again.
She's promising she's going to teach me how to swim. And she hasn't.
Yes, I am, Eamonn. We need to do that.
I can see a segment on that.
Still can't do it. But you believe, and you're absolutely right, that people should be made to swim at school, like sort of, it's part of your education. But I can't talk. My director's told me to shut up. I've got to go. Thank you very much
Thank you,
indeed, Rebecca. He's trolling me. He's bullying me.
He's not. He's just trying to control you. We're going to take a break. After that, we're going to be talking to our reporter, Anna Riley. She's going to be live in Hull. She'll be talking about a study that's found patients waiting in A&E for over 5 hours are more likely to lose their lives. Serious stuff. See you in a mo.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
And Dan Wootton, join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Eight o'clock is the time. You're very welcome. This is Eamonn and Isabel with GB News, your breakfast show here on GB News TV and radio.
Yeah, we are live across the whole of the UK and indeed abroad. Lots of people watching us from overseas. That's on TV
Do you know how
and
far
on
overseas?
radio.
I've had contact from Australia.
I've had 2 from Hong Kong.
Have you?
Mm.
Absolutely.
Beat that.
Well, beat that.
Yeah.
Well.
Wherever you are.
This is like
remember.
trump card here, so it is.
Look, don't forget, if you can't catch us on the radio or the TV, there's always YouTube, and we've also got a very good app, the GB News app. Download it.
And you know, those of you who watch do seem to like the show, so please go and spread the word. And you know, the BBC are worried, ITV are worried.
They are.
They're putting
Rightly
out adverts morning
for the first time.
For the first time ever. They've shifted around their presenters.
Reorganised their sets.
Little old us. What threat are we to anyone? There you go.
There you go. Look, lots coming your way between now and 9:30. Our top story this hour, the so-called pork pie plot to oust the Prime Minister. It follows that car crash interview yesterday, which John Gaunt was just talking about, in which Boris Johnson said he was never warned the Bring Your Own Booze party was against his own rules.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is expected to announce an easing of Plan B coronavirus restrictions in England. Question we're asking you, is it time to put the pandemic behind us, or are you not so sure?
Plus, our top story this hour, inflation is at the highest rate since 1992. We'll look at the figures and explain what it all means for you.
And the pound in your pocket. Join in any of the discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews or tweet at gbnews. Okay, UK December inflation, the figures came in an hour ago, and it does not tally with past analysis expectations. 5.4% is the bottom line year on year, highest figure since March 1992.
Yeah, but what does this actually mean? Well, the East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has been to Mansfield to hear some of your views.
I can't explain it. Not that clever.
Not really, I don't really follow any of it like that now, I don't take any notice of it. So, no, not really.
Not really, no. I feel like, because I work, so I get money, but I don't really know anything to do with finance.
The higher the interest or inflation is, obviously the harder it is for people that, because sort of like, say, a 5% pay rise on very little doesn't mean anything, but 5% if you're on 60 grand a year means you get a lot better return.
All I know is that money goes up, it constantly goes up. No one wants it to go up, and I don't understand why it does, but I just know that it does, and at the end of the day, I've got no money. That's essentially it.
Can you just explain to me how inflation works?
Well, not really. Couldn't you?
No,
not really.
It really works.
No, not really. It's just they keep putting it up, and that's about it.
Being the older generation, we've always had to watch our money and budget. And we do try and take care of what we spend most of the time. You know.
Money doesn't go up. Money goes up a little bit, but nowhere near as much as the inflation.
Yeah, well, I had the misfortune of being in the 70s and saw rip-roaring inflation. It was great for people who had money because, you know, you could get 15% interest on your savings. You know, can you imagine that nowadays, getting that sort of return? And young people who'd taken out mortgages saw their mortgage rates double overnight, and it was crippling for them, and it set them back several years. One of the problems nowadays is I think young people and middle-aged people who've got mortgages have got used to very, very low interest rates, and we could be living in a fool's paradise when things start to turn and inflation roars again.
I do know how the money works, and I know how expensive it's got, and how it's going to inflate. It makes you wonder what's going to happen anyway, but at my age, why should we worry?
We're just directing the programme. Let's now go to business and finance broadcaster. Here's Michael Wilson now on these figures. So the retail price index is about 2% higher than the figure we're actually seeing, Michael. Do you think the underlying trend is worse than 5.4?
I think it really depends. I mean, it's very interesting to see that those sort of people in the street commenting on what they thought was going on. I think, the experts try to do these measures. We're looking at 5.4%. What does it actually mean? It probably doesn't mean an enormous amount, actually. Yes, it's high. Can you remember what life was like in 1992? I bet not many people actually can. But that's what we're looking at now.
I took out a mortgage then, and it was something huge, like 15%.
Well, it was, yeah, and I mean that's because all sorts of things were going on there, and one of the people you were interviewing in the street was absolutely right, saying that the whole generation of people have now grown up getting mortgages and so on. A, yes, interest rates are completely low, but B, these small rises that are now going to have to happen will make mortgages very expensive for everybody. Just let me recap very, very slightly. Everybody was right in that. Even the experts don't really understand what inflation is. However, what happens is that price rises of a sort of basket of various goods, and it does get altered, gets measured and looked at every 6 months or so. There's got to be something for the Bank of England, for example, and don't forget they meet their interest rates meeting is on February the 3rd, or at least the results of it will come on February the 3rd. These are the last big things that they'll be looking at. So the authorities look at these kind of figures and decide where interest rates are going. And I'm telling you this, the only way interest rates are going is up. And I've seen estimates now, and yesterday as well, looking forward to talking to you about this morning, saying that we could have interest rates at 1.25%, the base rate at 1.25% by the end of 2022. Now, again, that doesn't sound a great deal, but it is when we've been at 0.15% for so long, and the Bank of England put up rates very, very gradually in December as a response. It's the first central bank to do so. So what I'm saying is that mortgages are going to get more expensive, but this is all adding in to this horrible cost of living crisis. I certainly would not like to have to deal with this right now, because I know, as leading politicians do, and certainly most economists actually do, that what's happening is completely outside our control. It's all to do with wholesale energy prices. It's all to do with supply chain shortages. And also,
I know what it's all got to do with, but Michael, solution, anybody in a job's probably going to weasel up to their employer and say, hey, life's tough. I need a 5.4% pay rise just to keep pace with things. But, my friend...
And the employer will say, yeah, and employing people's tough as well. And I cannot afford to pay it because my margins are so tight. If you don't understand what those are, just have a look at my operating costs. That's what employers are going to say. People are actually caught. I mean, it's a very good point, Eamonn, that the fact that average wages are not going to keep up with inflation this year. So this, never mind whichever government is actually in power, whoever is leading whichever party, it doesn't matter. This is going to be the big story of the year, no question about it, the cost of living crisis, and it's not going down anywhere soon.
And of course, you only have to look to what's happening in Ukraine, and you worry that could also exacerbate things. Michael Wilson, really good to get your thoughts, business and finance broadcaster. Thank you very much.
Headlines shaping up like these on this Wednesday morning. MPs have criticised plans for the armed forces to take over English Channel operations to limit migrant crossings, warning using the Navy as a taxi service would be an embarrassment.
Defence Minister James Heappey has confirmed the Royal Navy will not be intercepting small boats or using sonic weapons, and we'll be speaking to him later on this hour.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet the Russian foreign minister as tensions between Washington and Moscow continue to rise over a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine. The trip is set to show US support of Ukraine and emphasise to Russia the need for de-escalation. They'll meet in Geneva on Friday.
Two teenagers who were arrested in Manchester in connection with the hostage-taking at a Texas synagogue on Saturday have been released without charge. Blackburn-born Malik Faisal Akram was shot dead by the FBI after holding people hostage in a 10-hour standoff.
The committee investigating the US Capitol riots have issued subpoenas to some of Donald Trump's closest advisors, including his former personal lawyer and former New York Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. The committee is demanding information and testimony from Mr. Giuliani, who defended the president and voter fraud claims in the months after the election in 2020.
The pandemic is nowhere near over. The World Health Organization has warned. The head of the WHO has given his COVID update, saying now is not the time to give up on strategy. He adds Omicron continues to spread at a rapid rate around the world, and if people think it might be all over after this latest variant, that is simply not the case. Now, Boris Johnson is bracing himself for another tough day in Westminster. Not only will he be coming face-to-face with Sir Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's questions, but he's also facing down a rebellion of Red Wall MPs in his own party in the so-called pork pie plot. Let's bring in our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, joins us in the studio. So just first of all, explain, good morning, what this pork pie plot involves. Who's involved?
So this all relates to who's behind some of the suggestions about putting letters into Boris Johnson to try and trigger this leadership race. Of course, they need 54 letters. Lots of speculation this morning that they're really close to it. Some suggesting they're nowhere near that. Frankly, no one really knows. Pork pie plot, though, comes from apparently one of the key people involved in this. Alicia Kearns represents Melton Mowbray, the constituency where, of course, pork pies, the home of the pork pies, some might say, hence the name. In the end, though, it is looking pretty tricky for Boris Johnson. There is no doubt he's in a difficult position. There is no doubt yesterday there seemed to be a momentum against him, particularly amongst this new intake of MPs elected in 2019. Lots of them represent constituencies actually in the North and the Midlands who won those seats largely based on the popularity of Boris Johnson at the last election. Hence why some of his supporters, the Prime Minister's supporters, are pretty outraged that these people are plotting against the Prime Minister. They were referred to as nobodies yesterday by some of his supporters. But in the end, I think those MPs feel, first of all, where is this going to end? When do these allegations stop? Is this really the whole story? Is Sue Gray really going to discover something that actually disputes what the case is?
When are we going to hear from her? This might be her on the line.
I know.
When actually are we going to hear from her?
Glad that was your phone and not mine.
That is the big problem with all this, because until she reports, the speculation and the rumours and the challenges just go on and on.
No, indeed. Her problem, though, is we all thought she was going to report potentially last week. Then we had the allegations of the Downing Street parties on the eve of the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral, which I think she was unaware of. We now know Dominic Cummings is going to be interviewed by her. That was revealed yesterday. So that would suggest, and there was speculation, it could be the end of this week. Now it might be the start of next week. But frankly, Eamonn, it seems that when she gets close to potentially reporting, there's a new allegation of another party. In the end, though, of course, Sue Gray's report, we don't think is actually going to cast any judgments. It's just simply going to lay out the facts about what happened and when, and potentially people's explanations for it.
Well, of course it's going to cast judgments, because whatever she lays out, mate, people like you are going to paw over it, and you're going to come to conclusions which are therefore judgments.
But it's interesting in the end is that, like, for example, she will not decide if the Prime Minister's broken the ministerial code, which is what essentially Dominic Cummings is accusing the Prime Minister of lying.
What's the point of all of this?
Well, I think she's just simply saying, this is what I know kind of happened. You now need to make up the decision. And in part, and this is a big problem with the British system, is that essentially it's only the Prime Minister who can refer himself to the investigators to find out whether he has broken the ministerial code.
That's going to be more criticism heaped on his shoulders.
I think so. In saying that, in defence of the Prime Minister, his argument fundamentally is that Sue Gray needs to investigate. He thinks he's done nothing wrong. He says that he thought this was a work event. He argues he's not lied to Parliament. And his supporters would point out and turn around this morning and say, forget about the parties, he gets the big calls right. That's what they're saying this morning. You look at the economy, it's the fastest growing in the G7. that we've got that cost of living crisis down the line. And in England, they would argue he got the balance of restrictions right over the Christmas period with the Omicron variant.
Well, look, so many people are saying that he looked like a beaten man during that interview yesterday, but somebody's tweeted me this morning saying, look, if they're having so much trouble getting to the 54 letters, which is the threshold to trigger this vote of no confidence, then presumably he'll probably walk a vote of no confidence, could well win it. It would take, 180 people he'd have to persuade that he's the right man for the job. So, just because he gets put up for a vote of no confidence doesn't mean it's game over for him.
No, indeed. And as you say, you need to get to 54 to trigger that vote. You then need a majority, so about 181 Conservative MPs essentially to boot him out. The kind of political thought process, though, at Westminster is that in the end, when it's a secret ballot, and it would be a secret ballot, is that the Prime Minister probably would be unlikely to survive that. Now, why do I say that? Because there's a sense that there is a lot of anger out there, and there are a lot more Conservative MPs who, frankly, are frustrated behind the scenes, not saying anything publicly, and they are waiting on this report. And it is that moment that they may well strike. And also what will focus MPs' minds is if, and it is a big if, but the Prime Minister is fighting for his political career, that if they get to that 54, MPs then need to make a decision. They need to decide, do we get rid of Boris Johnson now, or do we stick with him? Because if they do stick with him, if they do fail on this, if the vote of confidence fails, he is there for another year at least, because you cannot challenge him. Again, the same happened to Theresa May a couple of years ago. All
of which put together, Darren, makes for superb viewing and listening with Prime Minister's questions at noon today.
Big day, big day. And I say that because actually the lull in all of this, the sense that actually things were now moving in the Prime Minister's direction, was when he frankly went into hiding, when he was isolating for about 6 days between the last PMQs and that interview yesterday, that really difficult interview yesterday. I think the sense amongst MPs was that Prime Minister's question time was not good for the Prime Minister last week, that his apology simply was not enough, that yesterday's interview, in which he seemed to suggest he didn't know what the rules were, that no one told him he was breaking any rules, again, was not a good look. And that is why today, Eamonn, you're right, Prime Minister's question time is going to be crucial. I mean, genuinely crucial. It could be the moment that decides the premiership.
And I have to say, just on a human level, it is horrible to see somebody under personal stress like he is. I mean, regardless of political views, political spectrums, that interview yesterday was uncomfortable watching. I think
it'd be more horrible not being able to sit by your loved one's bedside as they were dying. So
quite.
Let's get it into perspective. All right. That's what I would say. Darren, thank you. Thank you so much. So many questions. It is a real soap opera, though.
Oh, it's a psychodrama, is what it is.
It's House of Cards, political
drama.
Yeah,
it really is. Or Game of Thrones. The analogies keep coming. Darren, thank you.
Look, we're going to take a break there. And when we come back, we're going to take a closer look at the NHS backlog. Give you the weather picture on this Wednesday. Here's how it's looking.
Good morning. There's a bit of rain around this morning, but it is all moving away to the south and sunny spells will follow for most of us. But you'll notice a colder feel, I suspect, with the breeze from this afternoon. High pressure has been dominating, but one is shrinking away. Another one is moving in. But for the time being, we've got a couple of weather fronts just drifting south in between, and they're providing the cloud and the rain. A damp start over parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, some heavy bursts of rain for a time across the southwest. The southeast and East Anglia, some places still misty and murky here, but we'll start to see the cloud increasing through the day and then some patchy rain here during this afternoon. Some showers will linger across northern Scotland, turning a little wintry, but for most places it'll brighten up quite nicely today with some good spells of sunshine and temperatures getting up to 8-9 degrees. For a time, double digits across the southwest, but it will feel colder, especially as the strong wind brings a real chill across the northeast and some snow showers to Shetland. Even over the mainland of Scotland, could be some sleet and snow showers this evening. Might make things a bit icy. And then down the eastern side of England tonight, there could also be some showers here. And again, some of them could be wintry. And again, it could turn icy as temperatures fall lower than the night just gone. More widely, we'll see temperatures down to freezing. So a frosty start to tomorrow. Still a few of these wintry showers, just clipping parts of Lincolnshire into Norfolk. Mostly rain, but some snow is possible. The odd rain shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall as well, but for the vast majority, tomorrow is a beautiful, crisp winter's day. Yes, it'll be frosty to start with, and temperatures will only reach 4 or 5 degrees for most, but the winds will be easing off, and there will, as I say, Be quite a bit of sunshine around, all thanks to high pressure. This one's moving back in, keeping the weather fronts at bay. There will be at times some cloud and breeze across the northern half of the UK, but for many the outlook, even into the weekend, is to stay dry with more fog and frost, especially in the south.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Welcome back if you're joining us on the radio or on TV. The time is 8:22. We're talking hospital waiting lists now for routine NHS treatments. They're continuing to soar, with the National Audit Office warning the backlog in England could hit up to 12 million by early 2025.
How do you claw your way back from that? Absolutely
yeah.
incredible. Let's go to our reporter Anna Riley. Anna spoke to a woman in North Yorkshire who's been waiting for a knee replacement since August 2020.
During the pandemic, millions of patients like Rosemary Armitage, who were expected to be referred for hospital treatment, weren't. Nearly 6 million people in England like her are currently waiting for care, and many are paying the price both physically and financially, left in agonising pain, unable to work or leave their homes. Rosemary's been waiting for knee surgery since August 2020. She's on daily pain medication and has been forced to pay for a private osteopath to enable her to walk. Without this treatment, she'd struggle to even stand.
Eventually, I can get up, but if I get up, I can't sit down. When that happened, I couldn't go to the toilet properly. I couldn't get into a bath. I couldn't have a shower. I couldn't get dressed. My husband or my daughter has to stick me socks on or things like that, and that still happens now. If it's in one of those moods, you just can't do these things. And it's humiliating. You just think, no, I'm not ready for this yet. I know it's going to come, but I'm not ready for it yet. And as I am in my 70s, I think I want to make sure I can use that 70s carefully and enjoy it. Because you're obviously going to get weaker as you get older. But I just feel like they're sitting there waiting for you to either fall off your perch or, all right, eventually we'll get round to you. It's a sad situation at the moment.
Rosemary believes that COVID has been used as an excuse for delaying hospital treatment, and she's lost faith in the NHS.
I just feel the light's gone out of the National Health Service, and they're just treading water. They're not actually getting anywhere. They must be totally frustrated, and I know we are. You end up talking to receptionists and nearly crying your heart out because you're in pain and you don't know what to do with yourself, and it's such a shame because we had an amazing system. And we still got the people. So what is going wrong? And it's not all COVID. COVID's now an excuse. We've got to get back to what we used to have, and we are capable of having. We're a strong country, so why can't we do it? It just breaks your heart.
In response to Rosemary's case, a South Tees hospital spokesperson said, "Our amazing doctors and nurses are continuing to provide care for patients, including the delivery of 2,823 operations in the last 5 weeks alone, as well as treating thousands of COVID patients." Anna Riley, GB News, Northallerton.
Anna joins us live now. Before we go to Anna, just Rosemary and her knee situation. Not everybody can do this, not everybody wants to do this, but you can see why people end up going privately on this, because she is in pain, acute pain, her mobility is so reduced. And Rosemary, we feel for you, and we hope it'll not be long before you get it all right.
Yes, let's bring in Anna now, because a new study has been released showing patients are more likely to die if they endure long waits in A&E. So just walk us through these findings then, Anna.
Good morning, and yes, I definitely feel for Rosemary too, and hope she gets that surgery soon. Well, this study that's emerged, it's come from the Emergency Medicine Journal, and it's found that waiting longer than 5 hours in A&E increased the risk of dying from any cause within 30 days, with the risks going up the longer that people are waiting in A&E. This research examined data from more than 5 million patients in England who were admitted to major A&E departments from 2016 to 2018. And looking at this, the researchers said that for every 82 admitted patients who waited more than 6 to 8 hours for a bed, there was one extra death. And medics working in NHS departments said the issue has got worse. Obviously, that study was 2016 to 2018, but with the impacts of COVID as well, they're saying now that the 4-hour A&E target, which is due to be scrapped, is of key importance to patient safety, and they don't want it to be scrapped. And looking at recent figures as well, NHS England data from earlier this month showed that a record 12,986 patients had to wait more than 12 hours in A&E departments in England in December from a decision to admit to actually being admitted. And this figure is up from 10,646 in November and is the highest for any calendar month since records began in August 2010. So obviously not just a problem with backlogs of people waiting like Rosemary for treatment and for operations, but for people actually going into A&E and needing to be admitted. These figures are showing that it can lead to deaths the longer that people are waiting to get in.
Thank you very much indeed, which always amazes me. Just take A&E as an example. I think to myself, why, when people are in their most acute pain, and they're more frightened and they think they're going to have a heart attack and they've got a broken bone or whatever, why aren't there more resources at A&E rather than anywhere else?
There are already more resources in A&E than in other places,
not
but
if
just
you have
not
to
enough.
Wait 3 or 4 hours. That's not more
just,
resources. You want to come in and be seen to immediately with that. It all boils down to money, doesn't it? It all does that.
Look, in the next half an hour, we're going to be speaking to the Conservative Minister for the Armed Forces about the UK's decision to supply Ukraine with anti-tank weapons. We'll talk about that, plus all the rest of the day's news with him.
We've got the newspaper reviewers back as well with all of that. And here comes your weather on this Wednesday.
Good morning. There's a bit of rain around this morning, but it is all moving away to the south, and sunny spells will follow for most of us. But you'll notice a colder feel, I suspect, with the breeze from this afternoon. High pressure has been dominating, but one is shrinking away. Another one is moving in, but for the time being, we've got a couple of weather fronts just drifting south in between, and they're providing the cloud and the rain. A damp start over parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands, some heavy bursts of rain for a time across the southwest. The southeast and East Anglia, some places still misty and murky here, but we'll start to see the cloud increasing through the day and then some patchy rain here during this afternoon. Some showers will linger across northern Scotland, turning a little wintry, but for most places it'll brighten up quite nicely today with some good spells of sunshine and temperatures getting up to 8-9 degrees. For a time, double digits across the southwest, but it will feel colder, especially as the strong wind brings a real chill across the northeast and some snow showers to Shetland. Even over the mainland of Scotland, could be some sleet and snow showers this evening. Might make things a bit icy. And then down the eastern side of England tonight, there could also be some showers here. And again, some of them could be wintry. And again, it could turn icy as temperatures fall lower than the night just gone. More widely, we'll see temperatures down to freezing. So a frosty start to tomorrow. Still a few of these wintry showers just clipping parts of Lincolnshire into Norfolk. Mostly rain, but some snow is possible. The odd rain shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall as well, but for the vast majority, tomorrow is a beautiful, crisp winter's day. Yes, it'll be frosty to start with, and temperatures will only reach 4 or 5 degrees for most, but the winds will be easing off, and there will, as I say, be quite a bit of sunshine around, all thanks to high pressure. This one's moving back in, keeping the weather fronts at bay. There will be at times some cloud and breeze across the northern half of the UK, but for many, the outlook, even into the weekend, is to stay dry with more fog and frost, especially in the south.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Very warm welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast. Star headlines now, and the Tory MP Andrew Bridgen has told GB News that Boris Johnson's facing a growing number of letters of no confidence from within his own party. Reports say 20 Tory MPs, many representing former Labour heartland Red Wall seats, met on Tuesday to discuss the Prime Minister's fate. If 54 Tories submit letters, it could trigger a leadership contest. The Prime Minister is expected to announce an easing of England's coronavirus restrictions when he makes a statement on Plan B measures in the Commons today. The measures, which include working from home guidance, COVID passes and mandatory masks in shops and on public transport, are due to expire on January the 26th. Inflation has risen to 5.4% in December. That's the highest rate since March 1992. The Office for National Statistics says that's up from 5.1% in November. The largest upward contributions from November to December came from food, beverages, hospitality and clothing, partially offset by transport, recreation and culture. A legal challenge has been put forward against the Welsh Government over its mandatory COVID pass. The campaign group Big Brother Watch is seeking a judicial review of the pass, which came into force in October 2021, calling it draconian, discriminatory and pointless. A man remains in custody in the investigation into the murder of the schoolteacher Aisling Murphy. The man, who's in his 30s, was arrested yesterday in County Offaly on suspicion of murder. The 23-year-old was attacked whilst on a run near a canal in Tullamore in Ireland last Wednesday. And proposals set to be made this week could give patients better access to life-changing medicines. The new measures from the National Institute for Health will change the way it assesses new medicines and devices for NHS use.
Some of the stories in the papers today, just going to be jumping out to you. I mean, there's all the Boris Johnson bit, but we're not going to talk about that now. I don't think we are. No, we're going to go into other things. I've got Baroness Kate Hoey with me now and John Gaunt, as they have been all morning. Guys, really appreciate you being here. And John, we're going to start in the Daily Mail. It's in all the papers as well. But this is the guy who killed, the figure varies, but 77 people. Where was all this? In Norway a few years ago. And his name is Anders Breivik, right? So he's in the papers, he's giving a Nazi salute, and unbelievably, this guy's trying for parole.
You're right. He killed 77 children, don't forget, as well.
That's right,
There's no doubt about it, he did it. Now we're going through this ridiculous pantomime charade of allowing him to apply for parole. Even the papers are saying he's not going to get it. So why are we going through it? I mean, it's in Norway. And one of the remarkable things is this was 10 years ago. It seems like only yesterday. I mean, basically, I'd have sent him for the Saddam shuffle. He should have hung, or he should have been hanged. He should have been executed. He shouldn't be here to do this. And this is where we never really have this real debate. We're not allowed to have it in this country, this proper debate about the death penalty for certain heinous crimes. I know he didn't do it here.
John, I watched a documentary on this, Kate, one time, and it was chilling. His planning was chilling.
Yeah.
The innocence of the people that he killed was chilling. So as you say, what debate is there to be had? Sometimes there's not two sides of a story. There's only one side of the story, and that guy...
And I think there's other heinous crimes. You know, there's other heinous crimes that have happened in our country. The killing of little Arthur, I would suggest. You know, why do we keep these people alive? Ian Huntley, another one. I just don't understand it. And if we put this to a referendum tomorrow and said it was limited to these crimes, with proper DNA, or whether they've admitted their guilt, whatever, then the death penalty would come back. It would be a bigger vote for it than Brexit. But do you know what? The establishment elite, those people who think they know better than you and I, won't allow us to have that vote. It's a disgrace. It was given away when we were in the EU. Jack, the man of straw, was behind it. He was. And that is the problem. And I'm sorry, the British public have a right now to debate this again. But as I say, limited.
You were probably in government then.
Yes, I can vaguely remember. It was a long time ago, but I don't know. I never had a vote on that. No. I'm not even sure. I genuinely can't remember how it went
Jack
through.
Straw signed us up for it.
If you had a vote now,
Well, I think there is a difference between. It sounds ridiculous because you're dead at the end, but there is there's levels of murder and heinous crimes, and this particular one in Norway. I mean, it doesn't seem like 10 years ago because I remember it, all the children on the island. It was really dreadful. I think John's right. You know, there are a few issues in this country where it is just not acceptable to discuss.
Yeah.
And I actually think we could discuss this and see whether in a hard and fast, absolutely no issue about whether the person's innocent or not. It's the cost of keeping somebody in prison for 20, 30 years that really gets to people.
But all of them then play these games. He's playing this game in Norway.
It's just to get publicity.
Get publicity. There are idiots who still follow him, far-right groups.
Yeah.
But there are other people who do that in this country, and they go through this charade, as I say, this pantomime, but it's not funny because the relatives are being put through the ringer again. They've had a life sentence.
Yeah.
He's not really getting a life sentence because he's playing with it. And look, you know, he said he's turned away from terrorism, but look what he's doing.
Yeah, salute. Yeah.
And stop your genocide. He's basically saying stop the genocide of whites, which, of course, isn't happening anyway.
Okay.
I'm sorry, let's have a debate about it.
But you don't think he's going to get his parole?
No, I don't think so. I won't be betting in favour of him.
Right, the shenanigans that are going on around Ukraine. The interpretation you've got here, Kate, from the Times is that the West seem to be backing down or listening to Vladimir Putin as to why he's got 100,000 troops around the Ukraine border.
Well, there's a very interesting story in the Times, because what it's really saying is that the EU and the United States have shelved a plan to expel Russia from the world's dominant international payment system if it invades Ukraine. And when you read through, the reason they're doing that is that actually it would financially affect Germany in particular if this happened. And, you know, that is the one area where, because quite honestly, if this happens, I can't see any Western troops going in to support the Ukrainian people. I just don't think it will happen.
British troops, and we're going to be talking to the armed forces.
They're nearby, and
they're on their way.
But you know, having seen what happened during Iraq, you know, any government, and this is why again it would be just nonsense for the Tories to be going through some kind of leadership crisis if you're in a situation where we might be having to whether we're sending people in to be killed. I mean, that's what would happen. But what is interesting here, when it all comes down to it, the money side is more important to the European Union, because it would do serious damage to the economies of Germany and other European Union members that have trade with Russia.
What does this actually mean? So they've shelved plans to take Russia out
of the SWIFT network, which it's the. I mean, I don't understand the detail of it, but it handles all the transactions of worth something like 100 trillion. If you can tell me how much 100. A lot. Yes, and it would basically cut off Russian banks from the rest of the Western world. Okay. So it would affect a lot of people, presumably a lot of Russians who have properties in this country and
people who would be doing business with Russia.
Yes.
Well.
So it's a direct sanction that would actually hit people not just at the lower end in Russia, you know, ordinary people, who many of them, I'm sure, have no desire to go to war.
And also, I think a lot of this, you know, it's interesting you mentioned Iraq and Afghanistan. This is about fuel again. It's about this gas pipeline that goes through Germany from Russia. It's also, you know, I don't want to sound as if I'm in the pocket of President Putin, but he has a right to be annoyed because the EU are trying to expand into the Ukraine. And
John, I think you hit upon a very interesting point here, because we take all the press reporting totally from our side on this. And you say to yourself, well, listen, if I was sitting somewhere and another country were bringing their missiles and their tanks right up nose to nose with me. I mean, if this was Cuba...
Fed up, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, America wouldn't be allowing this to happen, or in Canada or Mexico.
And I think that's what's going on. There's been a bit of a face-off here, and they are trying to expand that way. And also Ukraine at the moment is a divided country anyway. There's a lot of problems in Ukraine. It's a massive country as well. And we've got this situation where both the EU and NATO want to expand that way, and they want to put their weapons there. So as you say, if you were Vladimir Putin, you might think, hang on, I ain't having this. And that's why they're backing down now. And don't forget, he's got the gas and the oil.
Well, it's the gas thing with Germany, isn't it? But I don't think if they invade, they will invade the whole country. They'll pick the areas where there's Russian speaking and go in and pretend they're there to help. But you know, you're right. We do tend to take always the one settled view of it, and it's only when actually it gets to a stage where there is a real risk of war that people start analysing why are we doing it. We didn't do that with Iraq in time.
Yeah, and I'm fed up of all this propaganda, and certainly anti-Russia propaganda. We know where the problem is at the moment. It's China. But this, you know, idea that the Russians eat their babies, it just gets on my nerves. I've been to Russia a couple of times. They're just like us. The people are just
John,
like
this is the
us.
thing
I'm not defending
Putin. The average Russian member of the public, I'm sure every Russian mum, the last thing they want is their son or daughter.
I spent a couple of weeks filming about 4 years ago in Moscow and around Moscow, and there's two different economies and two different cultures. There's Moscow, and then there's St. Petersburg or whatever, and then there's the rest of it. And all I noticed was all people wanted to do is what most of us want to do: get a better car, get a fancy suit, have a department store to shop in. They wanted to be much more westernised than we perhaps give them credit.
I went to a shopping centre in St. Petersburg, and literally I could have been in Milton Keynes.
Absolutely.
All the shops were the same names. They had English names. They didn't have Russian names.
Yeah.
And it just made me realise, you know, we need more George War, less war, and there's a lot of posturing. And the EU love it. They love it, which is why we were so right never to sign up to an EU army. Otherwise, we'd be in there, Eamonn.
I filmed in Russia 30 years ago, and it was full of Russian cars that you wouldn't want, right? Ladas everywhere.
Yes, little ladas.
When I went back last year, Land Rover, Range Rover, Jaguar, Mercedes, you know, that's just that was the big change. They want to be like us.
Yeah. So why not encourage that? And
right. What about drinking? Where would you encourage drinking on an England cricket tour? The booze culture.
But it was over, wasn't it? They just lost really badly. This is a story about...
Yeah, they went out with the Australian team, didn't they, on the booze?
Yes, it was interesting that the story is implying that they were all out together, you know, the players, which of course is probably quite natural, that after a sporting event...
What they should have done, England should have taken them out before. And then maybe we would have had a chance
but it was
of winning.
Disappointing.
Because we were appalling, weren't we? I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's been a terrible test, Ashes series for us. There are excuses like there wasn't enough time for preparation and the rest of it, but we have been humiliated and we hate being...
But again, it's all about money, John, because they've gone for all these one-day matches and short cricket, and it's not what old-fashioned test matches were. That used to be the peak of cricket.
Real cricket has been damaged by it.
Now it's not anymore, and I think that's a danger.
I think you're right.
Sport.
But I mean, letting them have a drink
generally.
at the end, for goodness sake, what's the problem with that? They weren't rowdy, they weren't causing any trouble, there was no
I think it's
they're
a bit of a manufactured story.
Yeah, they do get drunk.
Because they lost.
Sports people do drink, yeah.
Guys.
Well, you lose if you win. You drink if you win, and you drink if you lose.
If you lose. John Gaunt, thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Baroness Kate Hoey, really appreciate your take on the papers today. Very informative and very entertaining. Front pages shape up like this. Let's have a look at the Telegraph first of all, saying the Prime Minister will announce the lifting of Plan B restrictions later today as he faces a plot from rebel MPs. Daily Mirror also focuses on that so-called pork pie plot to oust the Prime Minister. Here comes the Times. Further details stating that some Red Wall Conservative MPs are openly plotting to remove Boris Johnson. Guardian, news that Tory MPs believe there will be enough letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister to trigger a leadership contest. Daily Mail, there it is, exposed the pork pie plot to topple the PM. It says about 20 secret lunchtime meeting to coordinate the submission of no confidence letters. The Eye writes that the Prime Minister tried to distance himself from the Downing Street lockdown party by saying, nobody wanted me, no one warned me, it was against the rules. Well, a sorry state, says the Daily Express, as they write that the Prime Minister apologised 10 times for parties held at Downing Street. Financial Times, leading with a different story, Microsoft's agreement to buy video game maker Activision Blizzard for $55 billion.
The Sun has an exclusive on the Strictly dancer Nadia Bychkova breaking up with her footballer fiancé.
A British woman convicted for travelling to Syria to join Islamic State says she's now ashamed of her actions. She spoke exclusively to Dan Wooten on GBNews last night. Her name is Tarina Shackle, the only Briton to be convicted for such a crime, and she explained why she joined ISIS in the first place.
Can you just confirm to me, can you look me in the eye and confirm to me that you were not responsible for any violence over there? Because there are some messages that you sent that have raised the question as to whether you were or not.
No, absolutely not.
So you were never involved in any murders of anyone, any killings of anyone? You were never involved in any violence personally?
No, absolutely not.
And so you're over there, you're in a house, you're at least witnessing terrible things going on around you, and you realise you've made the biggest mistake of your life.
Yeah.
So how does it feel in that moment?
Despair. You know, feeling that I will never be able to come back, and even if I did, you know, is there any point going back anyway? Because I'm in a lot of trouble when I go home. I'm going to go to prison, they're going to take my child off me. But it just came to the point where you know, the need and the want to go home just became greater than thinking about what was going to happen to me upon return. So at that moment, you know, it was despair is probably the only word I can use.
Tarina, you're an intelligent human being. The time that you went over, ISIS were beheading Brits. Surely you knew what this organisation was about.
Yes, I had seen them things in the media. And, you know, the only thing I can say is that there's no justification for that. I can only offer an explanation, and I guess I just become so consumed in, you know, searching for this euphoric happiness as it had been sold to me and, you know, making hijra, migrating for the purpose of living in a Muslim country. I guess I became fixated on that as opposed to what I should have.
But you had a normal upbringing. I mean, the rumours were you were a fan of The Only Way is Essex, which is why you're referred to as the Tawi jihadi. What was it that turned you against our culture?
I was never turned against the culture. If I had turned against the culture, I don't think 7 weeks would have been enough to bring me back to loving the culture. It wasn't about that.
No, but you would argue that ISIS was at war with us. I mean, look at the Manchester arena bombings,
you know,
the killing of those very young Brits.
ISIS had, you know, is responsible for a lot of horrific things. Any attacks that happened on the West happened when I had already returned.
Okay.
So.
Let us know what you think about that interview. I don't imagine there's an awful lot of support for Tarina Shakil. She was, of course, jailed for 6 years. She only served 3 years of that. Of course, it was legitimate. She was discharged, as was the law. But let us know what you think about that. She was asked during that interview with Dan Wootton also about the ISIS bride Shamima Begum. Now, she's been stripped of her citizenship, and she was asked if she deserves a second chance.
Now, Tarina, we've got Shamima Begum, who is in one of these camps in Syria. And the government doesn't want her to return. The British public doesn't want her to return. Do you think she deserves a second chance like you got a second chance?
I get asked this question all the time, and, you know, I can't give a yes answer because I can't fiercely advocate for somebody when I don't know what their intentions may be when they come home. But if somebody genuinely, truly is like, wow, I made a mistake, I want to go home, send me to prison, then I guess so. I can't say no because I've been in a similar situation. However, you know, they will have whatever information they have about her, and which is why they've made decisions that they've chosen to make. So, you know, I'm all for redemption and giving people a second chance, but unless I knew more about the situation or what people's genuine intentions were upon return, I wouldn't really put myself out there to...
Tarina Shakil speaking there. Look, we want to bring in the MP, James Heappey, now. He's Minister of Armed Forces. I'm very pleased he's joining us on the show this morning. Look, so much to talk to you about this morning, including Afghanistan, what's going on in Ukraine. But we can't avoid the elephant in the room, and I want to kick off, first of all, by talking to you about Boris Johnson. Plots from within the party, lots of infighting, a very difficult PMQs for the Prime Minister. Do you think he's going to survive it all?
Well, I think he will survive PMQs, and I think it's a really difficult balance for the Prime Minister and indeed Parliament to strike, because the Prime Minister needs to, as he has done, show that he is sorry for the fact that the British people are so angry at him over the allegations that have been made. And parliamentarians will want to hold him to account for that. But I would also reflect that this is a time in which Prime Minister's questions also needs to be used to hold the Prime Minister to account over some really profound national security challenges that he needs to make decisions on right now, some really profound economic decisions that he needs to make decisions on right now, because
and James, we will.
We've seen this morning inflation. So I suspect that PMQs will be a festival of political bloodletting. But
well, look, we will talk about these very important issues, but I just want to pick up. I mean, you say that people know and can see that he's very, very sorry. Angela Rayner saying he's just sorry that he's been caught. Millions of British citizens, people watching this programme indeed, will think that the Prime Minister is a liar. And his defence yesterday that nobody warned him the drinks were against the rules are really beyond belief. He wrote those rules. What sort of defence is that?
Well, my understanding of both what he said yesterday and what he said at the Dispatch Spot the other day is a bit different. I mean, I don't think he has said that he didn't know the rules. I think what he's saying, and I can believe, because I have worked as his parliamentary private secretary in Downing Street and I've seen the life that he leads, I can well believe that in a day when he has dozens of appointments in a diary that is managed in 5-minute blocks, someone will have come to grab him from his study, will have briefed him on the stairs down from his study to the garden on what he was going into. And as he said himself at the dispatch box, in hindsight, he should have shut that event down there and then. He didn't, and he's apologised profusely. Look, many of your viewers will be shouting at the TV that that they don't believe me, they don't believe him. That's why the Sue Gray report is in train. There are plenty of people who do not support the Prime Minister, who have announced publicly that they are going to give evidence to that review. Sue Gray is formidably independent and utterly fearless. Last time she did one of these, Damien Green had to resign. So any suggestion that she is a patsy is for the birds.
Yeah, but the
she
point
will
is,
report,
you know,
and we
many
can
of
all
the
reflect
people,
on what she says.
The point is, many of the people who'll be shouting at the television and be very frustrated by this situation won't be able to get their feelings across because there is no election, unless, of course, Boris Johnson calls one. But he hasn't resigned. The British public don't have a say. This comes down to your party, and many members of your own party don't think he's fit to do the job anymore.
Look, I mean, they do have a say because they are the British people are our boss, and they make their opinion known freely. I've had hundreds of emails in which people have been very clear that they are hugely disappointed, angry. They see what has allegedly happened as being an insult given the hardships and sacrifices that they made. As the government spokesman this morning, my social media feeds are making it very clear what the nation thinks about what people like me are saying. And politicians are always concerned to hear the views of the public and to balance those views to make sure they make the right decision in the interests of the country. I simply say to
Minister, before I don't want you to run out of time, and I want to go back to last August and the men and women who served under you in your department. You basically want to recognise that members of the armed forces who rescued and took part in the evacuation of more than 15,000 people from Afghanistan. So I just think there's so many important things to talk about, but this is also vitally important that these people get the recognition that they deserve.
Eamonn, absolutely. I mean, and this is a change in medal policy, specifically for op-pitting. Ordinarily, you would need to serve in an operational theatre for 28 days in order to qualify for a medal. Op-pitting was only 2.5 weeks. But I think that all of us who have won medals having served longer in operational theatres, and I have, would reflect that op-pitting was a truly extraordinary operation. It was 2 weeks of the most intense activity that you could imagine, that required all of the courage that we expect of the young men and women who serve in our armed forces, but all of their compassion too. The image that struck me, and I suspect it will have stuck in your mind too, was the picture of the young paratrooper who, in his right hand, he had got his hand on his rifle and his finger hovering on the trigger because the threat around him was acute. And later in the week, we saw a deadly suicide bombing that killed dozens. But in his other hand, he was holding a child. Now, all of my service in Iraq and Afghanistan did not require that level of concurrent compassion and courage. And I think it's entirely right. And I'm very grateful to Her Majesty the Queen for awarding in these exceptional circumstances a medal to the amazing men and women who served in Kabul and on the air bridge that brought people out.
Yep, hear, hear.
Well, just for them to be appreciated, I'm sure means an awful lot. Now, on the other side, and I suppose finally, are we prepared to mean business? Are we prepared to go to war with Russia over Ukraine? British forces have been dispatched. They're on their way. What will it mean in terms of Britain's commitment? And as I was saying, do we mean business?
So, no, British forces will not play an active part in any military action in Ukraine. Important to be clear on that, because our Russian colleagues would like nothing more than to clip your program and show me as a British minister escalating the situation. Let's be clear on that. But what we have done proudly is provided our friends in Ukraine with thousands of defensive light anti-armor missile systems, which started to be delivered from the beginning of this week. That's testimony to my boss, Ben Wallace, who has been pushing for this and has delivered. We here in the MOD are great friends with the Ukrainians. And if you'll indulge, Eamonn, I'm sorry if I'm running over time. My real concern is that Putin is told by his inner circle that somehow the Russians are going to be welcomed into Ukraine and that this can all be quick and bloodless. It won't be. I was in Kiev last week, and there is a steely determination in the eyes of every Ukrainian that I met, both in their Ministry of Defense and in their military headquarters. What we stand on the brink of is an incredibly bloody war in which tens of thousands of people will die. And that is why everybody in the West needs to be focused on a dialogue with Russia that de-escalates. We must be clear with Russia what the penalties will be, both militarily from Ukraine and in terms of sanctions and the opprobrium of the international community. And at this 11th hour, we need to avoid what could be the most bloody war that we have seen in generations.
Yeah, look, incredibly sobering words from you. And my final question to you is this. Is there agreement in the West on how to tackle this? We saw a very bizarre situation yesterday when our RAF aircraft was diverted away from German airspace, carrying weapons to the border with Ukraine and Russia. Can you explain exactly why that is? Is Germany not supportive of this position that we're taking?
Well, Germany is not part of the overflight arrangements that we made, but in fairness, the overflight arrangements that we made were for the weapons to fly by the most direct route. I'm not familiar with the situation you describe around Germany. It's not something that's come across my desk, but as I understand it, in fact, not as I understand it, I know that the plan is for these C-17s not to use German airspace.
Okay, understood. James Heapy, really good to get you on this morning. Minister for the Armed Forces, we appreciate your time and for taking us through all the big issues as well as your brief this morning. We appreciate it.
So, Armed Forces personnel who took part in the evacuation of more than 15,000 people from Afghanistan last August set to receive a new medal in the theatre of war, recognising their efforts. So the Ministry of Defence, through James Heapy, announcing that today.
Coming up, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with you after this.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good morning. As we head into the last section of our programme, it is just exactly 5 minutes past 9. Thank you for your company on this Wednesday, the 19th of January.
You're watching Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. We're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and on your radio.
Good. So right now, what we're going to do coming up, we will not, we will tuck into the pork pie plot to oust the Prime Minister.
Yeah, this follows an interview yesterday in which the Prime Minister said he was never warned the Bring Your Own Booze party was against his own rules.
The show must go on. We'll be speaking to the actress Rebecca Gilliland about how Omicron gave her big break. We'll also have a roundup of all the day's showbiz stories as well.
And just remember, you can always join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or please do tweet us at GBNews.
Another big Prime Minister's questions, another big day in Westminster, 12 o'clock, all eyes and ears on PMQs.
Yeah, not only will the Prime Minister be coming face-to-face with Sir Keir Starmer for that, but he's also facing down a so-called pork pie plot from his own Red Wall MPs. And here to talk about all of this is former Conservative Red Wall advisor Oscar Redrup. Very good to have you in the studio again with us this morning.
Morning,
Oscar, difficult day for the Prime Minister. Could it be a terminal day?
Wow, what a question. Really interestingly, and of course things are moving so quickly. In the last few minutes, the call list has come out, which is the list of MPs who will ask Boris Johnson questions today, aside from Keir.
I just have to cut across you, because there's obviously a helicopter landing on our roof or something, or somebody with a pneumatic drill, just to explain what that vibration is.
Maybe it's Boris. Maybe he's thought, you know
sabotaging.
what? Yeah. Biggest dead cat strategy.
Okay, so what's this list that's just come out?
A call list has come out, and on that call list, a list of MPs, aside from Keir Starmer, of course, who will ask the Prime Minister questions today, and there are 2 or 3 Red Wall MPs. So it will be absolutely fascinating to see what they stand up and say today. This is going to have, I think, today more drama than an EastEnders Christmas special or something. It is real box office stuff, and it's what's so fascinating. And as I said before, we can really over-intellectualise politics, but this is about gut. It's about personalities, and what is so fascinating for the armchair political fan, if you like, is the people behind Boris are the ones that hold all the cards today, all the power today. Keir Starmer, it's going to be interesting. Keir Starmer, of course, is going to pile on the pressure on Boris. We've talked about the communications of the behind the face mask, looking completely defeated yesterday. He should have got ahead before the weekend, before those MPs went back to their constituencies. He should have sat down on the sofa, tie off, bypass the media, speak on social media, speak from the heart. But what Keir Starmer will pick up on, as well as that interview, is he's also going to pile the pressure on those backbench MPs and say, now's your time, guys. Stand up and do what's right for the country. From a Conservative perspective, I don't know why you'd hand over that initiative and play into Labour's hands like that. But
so there's what's right for the country and what's right for the party.
I'm quite cynically minded sometimes, Eamonn, if you haven't already noticed. But what is right for the country now, I genuinely believe, is not a Tory leadership. I mean, God, are we so bored of that? Do we really want to see Dominic Raab versus Jeremy Hunt on the front pages? All the animosity, all the kind of the backstabbing that a leadership contest. Is that really what we want? I mean...
Or do we want the chaos to continue of hand grenade after hand grenade and allegation after allegation? And the question is, these Red Wall voters have obviously got to weigh that decision up in the course of the next few hours.
Completely.
People are tweeting me saying their turkey's voting for Christmas. If they get rid of Boris, they're out of a job. Someone like Jeremy Hunt or Dominic Raab isn't going to win the Red Wall voters.
Well, absolutely. It's a huge call. It's like saying to Lewis Hamilton, well, you lost your last Grand Prix, so you're never racing again. He's an election-winning machine. I understand things may have changed now, and that's what's so fascinating about this week in politics. But again, I don't want to sound like a minister myself here or something, trying to obfuscate, but do we want to talk about the bigger issues that are actually affecting people's lives right now? Is that really... I mean, maybe that's where we should be pointing at. And actually, you know what? And people might not want to hear this, but Boris, there's been some pretty big decisions that we've gotten right recently in this country. I don't know another country in Europe I would rather be in with regards to COVID and how that's been handled. I know your listeners and your viewers, that cost of living crisis, that's what we need to be focusing on over the next few months, not, Dominic Raab said that in 2017. What do you think about that, Matt Hancock?
Yeah. 5.4% and the retail price 7.5%. That's what you're looking at.
Why aren't we? Honestly, I think a lot of regular folks sat around the boozer at the weekend, they'll probably go, you know what? Can we start talking about these issues, party or not?
No, definitely, and we're desperate to talk about them as well. And, it's definitely been a week now of relentless Boris stories, and it is very difficult because the country is facing one of the hardest years probably, well, certainly since the pandemic. But, going forward, how will we handle this? And as you say, a leadership election may not be what the country needs right now.
No, we're all quite... I think we're all, in many ways, we're all quite bored of politicians, and I think we'd kind of like less of them in our lives, rather than more.
We're not bored with you talking about them. You do it so well, Oscar. Thank you very much indeed, Oscar Reddraw. Appreciate that. Headlines shaping up like this. The MPs have criticised plans for the armed forces to take over English Channel operations to limit migrant crossings. Using the Navy as a taxi service would be an embarrassment, it's claimed.
Defence Minister James Heappey confirmed the Royal Navy will not be intercepting small boats or using sonic weapons.
US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken will meet the Russian foreign minister as tensions between Washington and Moscow continue to rise over a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine.
The trip is set to show US support of Ukraine and emphasise to Russia the need for de-escalation. They'll meet in Geneva on Friday.
2 teenagers arrested in Manchester in connection with the hostage-taking in the Texas synagogue on Saturday have been released without charge.
Blackburn-born Malik Faisal Akram was shot dead by the FBI after holding people hostage in a 10-hour standoff. The pandemic is nowhere near over. The World Health Organization has warned. The head of the WHO has given his COVID update, saying now is not the time to give up on the strategy. He adds Omicron continues to spread at a rapid rate around the world, and if people think it might be all over after this latest variant, that is simply not the case.
Now, an interesting fallout from Omicron and the coronavirus pandemic will be told to us now by the actress who joins us in the studio, West End star Rebecca Gilliland. Lovely to see you, Rebecca. What's Rebecca currently doing?
Rebecca's currently appearing in Wicked, the musical, had a big breakthrough during the pandemic. So, Rebecca, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming in.
So we're here to talk about the role of the understudy and how the pandemic may have created more stars.
Absolutely. The pandemic opened sort of a gateway for the understudies and swings and covers to sort of come into the fore and
explain to people why that is.
Because for the most of the time you would have the leads playing their core roles, but behind those you have a standby or you have an understudy or a second understudy, and they're the people who, as well as doing their own normal role in the show, they will know 2 or 3 other roles.
Rebecca, why would you do that? That's more work for less money.
It's more work, but it's so worth it. It's so much fun.
If you never get on, I always look in football, I always think, who would ever want to be the reserve goalkeeper or the second goalkeeper? You never get a chance to come on. You never get a chance to show people how good you are. Do you not finish, at the end of a working day and you think, I know 3 lines, I know 3 parts in this performance, and I don't get on?
I think with the sort of culture in theatre, there is so much support in there and in those theatres and in those communities, that when you do get those rare chances to go on, there's just so much love from everyone in the audience and everyone in the cast that those brief little times, they make it all worthwhile. And even just being in the ensemble, it's never just being in the ensemble, it's making this whole project come together and you're a part of it. And it's a wonderful feeling getting to perform every night with these incredibly talented people.
Huge amount of pressure, though, to know so many parts, and then for somebody to say, actually, you've got to actually prove that you know them, and here you are today, you're the lead. This happened to Catherine Zeta-Jones, didn't it? That was how she got her big break, because she was called up as an understudy. So do you think this could be your big moment?
Well, you know, never say never. I mean, I absolutely wouldn't turn down another moment in the sun.
But you know, Rebecca, you're in the production Wicked. Now, I haven't seen Wicked, but I've known people who have been in it, and everybody says you should go. But I would imagine you've got an awful lot of makeup on.
There's an awful lot of green makeup when you go on for Alphabet.
So you'd have to be ready to go. You've got to be in your green makeup. Now, last night, how long would it take you to get that green makeup off? You look great, incidentally.
Oh, well, I mean, I do love those photos. They're amazing. To get into the green makeup, you have a wonderful team of makeup artists at the theatre, and it'll take somewhere between maybe half an hour to 40 minutes.
Not about the same as me. Probably the same effects. Can I put you on the spot and ask you to give us a little rendition of one of the songs from Wicked? Do you mind? It just warmed up. I know, but I can't resist.
I've got an artiste here.
I know. Okay, or just having a West End
water
star.
And all sorts of things.
All right. Bit cruel.
I mean, I will probably get in trouble for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there will finally be the wizard and I.
Wow, it just
love
comes out
it.
so,
It's like a
so easily.
superpower.
And it's not like stage singing just can't be like normal crooning, can it?
No, there's so much story and so much expression you have to put into it. Don't get me wrong, anyone who does some like crooning or these incredible pop singers, they're incredibly talented. But I just think that extra mile that you have to convey a story and a narrative in musical theatre, I think it just adds a whole other ball game into the fore.
And do you worry about the industry? I mean, it's been absolutely battered, hasn't it, by all the closures during the pandemic and the fact that so many people have been off and, you know, the people haven't been able to go and the money and all of that's been involved. I mean, do you see yourself having a long career in the West End, or do you worry about generations coming through as well? Is there a strong future?
I hope so. I really hope that there is a strong future. For a while, back in 2020, when everything shut, it was very, very frightening. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of performers who just overnight had no job, and that goes for people backstage, the technical crew, and the producers as well. I think now that we're in sort of the end game of the initial COVID breakout, like not including Omicron, I think there is some light at the end of the tunnel. And even with Omicron, because it is milder, it seems to have affected us less. So the fact that we shut before Christmas for a week, the fact that we've not been off since then, we've had a week off and come straight back into it, smashing out 7 or 8 shows a week. I think it's really positive, and I think hopefully theatre will, in the long run, be all right.
Yeah. Will you be all right? As Isabel was saying, it's an unpredictable industry. I suppose it's like being a sports person or whatever. You know, you might get your break, you may not get your break as well.
Yeah.
When you get your break, you've got to take it with both hands. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What have you started? What have you been? What have you been involved in? What big name productions would we know whether you've actually got on stage or not for them?
So there's Wicked, obviously, which I'm in now. There was I was Lady Macbeth in an international tour of Macbeth that travelled along all the way to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and it was a wonderful time.
Wow.
I'm involved in the new series of RuPaul's Drag Race as a voiceover, which is insane and so much fun. I can't wait for that to air in February. But that's my first time doing voiceover as well, so that'll be insane.
Well, that'll be a long career if you get that right.
Fingers crossed. I very much hope it to be.
Do you know, I'm so impressed. We're sitting here thinking, you were out late last night. You were on stage. You know, you came in to talk to us today. And it's very good. And out of adversity, you show us that, good things can happen to people if they're ready for it. And hopefully it continues to happen for you, Rebecca.
I hope so.
An absolute pleasure meeting you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for coming
The only
in.
reason I'm being so nice to you is I'm worried in case you cast a spell on me. You don't want to annoy her, do you?
But you know what I really love is when you get genuine people with talent. There's so many celebrities and people in shows these days that have just got there through reality TV. But Rebecca Gilliland singing as she did on the spot there, really proving that there is raw talent
we do
right
see what
here
we're going
in the
to
West
put
End.
you on the spot with next.
What?
Yeah. Could you sing?
No.
Could you dance?
I
What can't
love
you
to
do?
sing. I love to sing.
I'm
But
very good in the shower singing. I'm very, very good.
on that note, we're going to
I do
take a
lot of
break. All right.
Elvis and Johnny Cash.
Actually, I've heard you out of the shower singing Elvis and Johnny Cash. You are a good singer. I'm dreadful. Anyway, enough of us. After the break, we'll be talking to the Showbiz editor of The Sun on Sunday, Hannah Hope. She'll be updating us on all the latest Showbiz goss. See you in a
Stay
minute.
with us. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
We continue the Showbiz theme now on GB Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. The Sun on Sunday Showbiz editor joins us now, and that is Hannah Hope with the biggest showbiz stories. What is tickling you, Hannah?
So, Strictly Come Dancing might be off our screens, but there's still drama. One of its star dancers, blonde bombshell Nadia Bichkova, has split from her long-term partner, Matija Skarabot. The curse of Strictly strikes again. Now, we revealed in The Sun today that she's actually grown close to fellow pro dancer Kai Widrington. He's one of the new Brit performers, and he's been helping to dry her tears. She's also been, she's had a very good working relationship with BBC Breakfast presenter Dan Walker since they were paired together on the show. So I think he's sort of been her rock through this breakup.
Oh, yes, I could see why. I'd have been there for her.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
I'd have taken all her calls. An incredibly beautiful woman, though.
Yeah, absolutely. She's stunning, and she always grows really close to her partners. She had a really good dance partnership with Dan. They got really far in the competition this year, 10 weeks. Many people thought that he didn't really deserve to be on the show still because his dancing wasn't quite up to scratch. I think we'd like to see one of you two on Strictly Come Dancing.
I'd love to do it.
Be really good.
I saw Natasha Kapinski win when I was just starting out on my career. And that really was what inspired me. I was like, I want to do that.
Isabel.
OK, we've only got a limited amount of time. So many showbiz stories. Which one do you want to pick next to go to?
Well, I've got to talk about Brooklyn Beckham's upcoming wedding. So he's getting married on April the 9th to millionaire Yank Nicola Peltz. Now, we all remember how when his parents, Victoria and David, got married on those comedy thrones in OK Mag, they're getting married in Vogue magazine. Of
course.
And they're getting married in her father's $1 million estate in Florida. Lots of security, but we can reveal that she's wearing a Valentino dress. So she's snubbing Victoria Beckham, who also has a line of wedding frocks in her own range.
I love how it's a snub to her mother. I didn't know Victoria Beckham had a bridal range.
Well, Eva Longoria wore one of her dresses when she got married a few years ago. But it's going to be a star-studded wedding, I'm sure. I'm waiting for my invite in the post.
So Gigi Hadid, Nicole Richie, Gordon and Tana Ramsey and Elton John all invited, apparently.
Absolutely, indeed. So, yeah, so that will be a big showbiz wedding. And I think it's quite nice to sort of, have these big events in the calendar to look forward to.
It's funny, though, because in his own right, he's not much of a celebrity, is he?
He's trying to be a TV chef, but it's funny because we all remember when he was born. I don't know if you guys do.
Yeah, I do.
But what's quite sweet is that his dad is going to be Master of Ceremonies, David, which I'm sure he'll be very good at. He's getting much better at public speaking. And his brothers, Cruz and Romeo, are going to be best men. So, yeah, it's going to be a family affair. So, yeah, I'm sure Victoria Beckham will be looking fabulous, even though she's not designing the wedding dress.
Isn't Harper going to be a bridesmaid?
I'm sure she will, yes.
Can't leave Harper out.
Can't leave Harper out, no, absolutely.
Fair enough. Well, we wish them well and hope that that's a big success and we'll get lots of pictures from that. I'm hoping, have we got time to squeeze in one more? 45 seconds, I don't know. Well, let's talk about Jessie J then, because she was at Cirque du Soleil when we were there last week, Eamonn.
Yes.
And she's been talking about her heartache in recent weeks, but not romantic
she recently
heartache.
had a miscarriage, but she's opened up about it, and she said that her life has completely changed and it's put everything into perspective since opening up about the miscarriage. 1 in 8 women suffer from it. So I think it's really positive that she's opening up about it and helping other women suffering.
OK.
Oh, we send her
On
our
that
best.
note, we say goodbye to you. Thank you very
Hannah.
much indeed, Hannah, for giving us our little showbiz sprinkling of a morning. Appreciate that. Appreciate you listening and watching us as well. And as Isabel and I say goodbye from this Wednesday morning edition of Breakfast, please do join us again first thing in the morning from 6.
See you 6 o'clock tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Good morning. There's a bit of rain around this morning, but it is all moving away to the south and sunny spells will follow for most of us. But you'll notice a colder feel, I suspect, with the breeze from this afternoon. High pressure has been dominating, but one is shrinking away. Another one is moving in. But for the time being, we've got a couple of weather fronts just drifting south in between, and they're providing the cloud and the rain. A damp start over parts of northern England, Wales and the Midlands. Some heavy bursts of rain for a time across the southwest. The southeast and East Anglia, some places still misty and murky here, but we'll start to see the cloud increasing through the day and then some patchy rain here during this afternoon. Some showers will linger across northern Scotland, turning a little wintry, but for most places, it'll brighten up quite nicely today with some good spells of sunshine and temperatures getting up to 8-9 degrees. For a time, double digits across the southwest, but it will feel colder, especially as the strong wind brings a real chill across the northeast and some snow showers to Shetland. Even over the mainland of Scotland, could be some sleet and snow showers this evening. Might make things a bit icy. And then down the eastern side of England tonight, there could also be some showers here. And again, some of them could be wintry. And again, it could turn icy as temperatures fall lower than the night just gone. More widely, we'll see temperatures down to freezing. So a frosty start to tomorrow. Still a few of these wintry showers, just clipping parts of Lincolnshire into Norfolk. Mostly rain, but some snow is possible. The odd rain shower for Pembrokeshire and Cornwall as well, but for the vast majority, tomorrow is a beautiful, crisp winter's day. Yes, it'll be frosty to start with, and temperatures will only reach 4 or 5 degrees for most, but the winds will be easing off, and there will, as I say, be quite a bit of sunshine around, all thanks to high pressure. This one's moving back in, keeping the weather fronts at bay. There will be at times some cloud and breeze across the northern half of the UK, but for many, the outlook, even into the weekend, is to stay dry with more fog and frost, especially in the south.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview Channel 236.
On Sky, we're